Chapter 1. Juxia City. It was a moonlit night with few stars. The bright streetlights illuminated the bustling streets. The cold wind rushed, carrying the rustling sound of fallen leaves. There seemed to be a sense of uneasiness in the air, as if an unknown fear was quietly approaching. Suddenly, a loud noise broke the tranquility of the night, which was frightening. A bloody corpse, like rotten meat smashed by a heavy hammer, fell heavily on the sidewalk. Blood gushed out, instantly dyeing the ground red, and the pungent blood was nauseating. Odd screams came one after another, and the originally quiet neighborhood fell into chaos. People showed fear on their faces and fled in all directions, fearing that they would be caught up by the monster that appeared out of thin air. "There is a monster! Run!" The crowd rushed to the other end of the street like a tide, scrambling to escape from this horrible scene. The shop became a temporary shelter, the glass windows were knocked frantically, and the door was violently slammed. The shopkeepers and customers hid in the corners in fear, praying that the monster would not find them. The whole block became a mess in an instant. The neat road was covered with footprints and bloodstains, and the trash cans were kicked over, emitting a foul smell. The breath of fear and despair filled the air, suffocating people. Next to the corpse stood a figure more than 3 meters tall. It was covered with black metal scales, flashing cold light, and its scarlet eyes revealed cold cruelty. Its sharp steel claws were covered with dark red sticky liquid. At this moment, it stared calmly at the lifeless corpse. Crack, crack, his body changed rapidly, and in a flash, he turned into a handsome young man in black armor. It was Yihao. In fact, Yihao was just his title in his previous life, not his real name of the devil. The real name of the devil is the root of the abyss devil. How can it be easily shown to others? I didn't expect that after reincarnating as an abyss demon, I would have the opportunity to leave the endless abyss and step into the main material plane. Yihao whispered to himself, with a light of relief in his eyes. It seems that I am lucky. Before he finished speaking, his palms clenched suddenly. Sizzle. With a light sound, the corpse exploded instantly, and the broken meat splattered. However, what was surprising was that the broken meat strangely recondensed and formed a blood-colored energy bead, the size of a fist. Yihao raised his hand and waved, and the energy bead flew towards him. He stretched out his hand and sucked, and the majestic energy in the energy bead surged out like a tsunami, pouring into his body continuously. This feeling is so wonderful. Yihao showed a satisfied expression on his face, feeling the unprecedented power in his body. The corners of his mouth slightly raised, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. Yihao whispered indifferently, "I don't know. After dragging this world into the abyss, can the gift I get allow me to become the Lord of the Abyss?" Yihao, who died suddenly due to overtime in his previous life, was accidentally reincarnated as the Time Shadow Demon among the Abyss Demons. He originally thought that he could only linger and struggle to survive in the endless abyss in this life. After all, from the inherited memory of the Time Shadow Demon, he has deeply experienced the horror of the endless abyss. In this abyss, even the lowest level demons have amazing strength. Their strength is enough to tear steel easily, and their speed can reach 100 meters per second. However, what is more terrifying is that the most direct way for the abyss demons to quickly become stronger is to devour and plunder each other. The fighting between demons will never end, unless the abyss demons are completely extinct, but this is almost impossible. The endless abyss is a collection of the negatives of the heavens and the worlds. As long as the heavens and the worlds exist, the abyss will not be destroyed. Every moment, countless abyss demons are born from the demon origin sea. Because the abyss is the negative of the world, the lifespan of demons is endless. Even the lowest demons can exist forever without external interference. Therefore, the only rule for survival in the abyss is to become stronger and make other demons afraid. Only in this way can you occupy a place in the endless abyss. And the fastest way to improve strength is to devour other demons of the same kind. In the endless abyss, the strength is divided into little demon, lower demon, middle demon, upper demon, great demon, abyss lord, abyss king, abyss supreme, abyss overlord. Each stage is divided into growth stage, maturity stage, and peak stage. At this time, Yihao is still in the lower demon stage of growth. In the endless abyss, he is just an insignificant existence, like an ant, and he will die if he is not careful. However, despite his humble status, Yihao's strength should not be underestimated. He can easily smash the floor structure with one blow, and with full force, he can destroy the entire street. And this is just the power of a lower demon in the growth stage. What is even more unexpected to him is that he can actually step into the main material plane one day. For the will of the abyss, everything in the main material plane is what it dreams of. Any abyss creature that can guide the creatures, and even the world of the main material plane into the abyss will be richly rewarded. However, ordinary abyss demons don't even have the opportunity to go to the main material plane. Many abyss demons have never left the endless abyss in their entire lives, because it is full of countless dangers and deadly things. Therefore, in the endless abyss, only powerful abyss demons have the opportunity to come to the main material plane. But even so, they must face the killing of the strong men in the main material plane. There are many worlds in the main material plane, with different strengths. Yihao didn't know what kind of existence the world he was in was at this moment. With a slight movement of his mind, he summoned the soul of the person he had just killed, and began to extract the memory in his soul. Suddenly, Yihao raised his eyebrows slightly. Earth? Zhuxia City? He showed a bit of playfulness on his face. Heh, interesting. Yihao continued to check the guy's memory with interest. Gradually, he knew what kind of world this was. Super God world. That angel and demon descended. The earth became a battlefield of gods. Gluttons were rampant, triangles were rampant, and more than half of the people on earth were killed or injured in the Super God world. Super God Academy. Angels, demons, gluttons, Liang, dinner. Yihao narrowed his eyes. His eyes flashed with a cold and evil luster. In front of the abyss, they were not even ants. Kesha's justice order is not worth mentioning. Morgana's extreme freedom is nothing. They will eventually fall into the abyss, become the nourishment and food for him to become stronger. Read books every day during the 11th. Chapter 2. Suddenly, a shrill siren sounded, pulling him back to reality from his contemplation. Yihao snorted, frowned slightly, and a trace of dissatisfaction flashed in his eyes. He slowly raised his head and began to scan the surrounding environment. Originally, this block should be very lively, with people coming and going and traffic, full of the hustle and bustle of life. However, at this moment, the block is empty and lonely, as if it was instantly emptied by a mysterious force. There is no trace of people, and even the wind seems to have stagnated, which seems particularly desolate and weird. In the corner of the street in the distance, several police cars with flashing red and blue lights are driving fast, and their sirens echoing in the empty block are particularly harsh. Yihao's eyes moved slightly, and he noticed that although the block was empty on the surface, but there are still some brave people who hide in the dark and observe him carefully. Their eyes were filled with fear, curiosity, and surprise, as if they were looking at a monster from another world. Yihao shook his head gently. He didn't care too much about the peeping of these ants. He waved his hand casually, and a terrifying wave of power suddenly broke out. That power seemed to be able to tear the space and destroy everything. A loud rumbling sound sounded instantly, and the whole block trembled violently under the impact of this power. Buildings began to collapse, the ground began to crack, and a doomsday-like horror atmosphere spread. Those who were still secretly observing were all scared silly at this moment. Their faces were full of fear and despair, their legs softened, and they collapsed to the ground, not even daring to breathe. They watched the block in front of them turn into ruins under Yihao's attack, and their hearts were filled with endless fear and shock. And those police cars that were rushing towards Yihao's position also stopped driving because of the sudden change. The policemen in the car were stunned. They stared at the scene in front of them, as if they couldn't believe their eyes. They looked at the ferocious existence standing in the ruins, and their hearts were filled with shock and fear. What kind of monster is this? They murmured to themselves, their voices full of trembling and disbelief. They couldn't imagine that there would be such a terrifying existence in this world. And those people in the buildings, those who were lucky could still wail a few words in the ruins, while those who were less lucky screamed directly under the impact of Yihao's power and died on the spot. The whole block, at this moment, seemed to have become a hell on earth, filled with the breath of death and terror. Yihao is no longer a human being now. He has long abandoned those beautiful qualities such as kindness, goodness, and innocence. Now he is transformed into a demon in the abyss. In this world, only the hymn of killing is the most beautiful and pleasant music. These consumables are all of high quality and must not be wasted. Yihao smiled. Then, a wisp of black mist floated out, quickly covering all the surrounding corpses. Then, the bloody corpses quickly turned into blood-colored energy beads, floating in the air, emitting a faint light, like the bright stars in the night sky. Not bad. Yihao raised the corner of his mouth slightly, stretched out his hand, and waved it gently. Suddenly, blood-colored energy beads flew towards him. But he did not swallow these energy beads immediately, but put them into his body space, intending to swallow them at leisure. Then, he summoned the souls of these people again. Ah! Painful screams came one after another, and countless souls flew out. They struggled hard, roared wildly, trying to break free from Yihao's restraints, but it was all in vain. Under his control, the souls of these people condensed into a huge, sacrificial array. Just as Yihao was about to put the remaining survivors into the sacrificial array, suddenly, bang 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 gunshots rang out. Then, a team of police quickly came from a distance. Although they were full of fear and shock in their hearts, their professional qualities made them firm in their beliefs and vowed to protect the safety of the people. They held their pistols tightly, aimed at Yihao, and kept shooting, trying to kill him on the spot. However, the sound of gunfire and the rain of bullets did not shake Yihao at all. He just waved his arm lightly, and a strange black smoke rushed out, instantly entangled the police. Puff, puff. The policemen's bodies stiffened instantly, and then they fell into the sacrificial array involuntarily in the ruins. The survivors who survived by chance became more and more panicked. They cried and ran around, eager to escape. And those who had broken hands and feet and were unable to move rolled and crawled away. However, they just rolled 2 meters, and then they felt numbness in their necks, and then lost all consciousness. Not bad, not bad. Yihao had a wicked smile on his lips, looking at the densely stacked survivors in the sacrificial array, and his heart was full of satisfaction. This time, he came to the right place. Transforming all these people into abyss demons will surely reap the rich gifts of the abyss will and help him go further. Thinking of this, Yihao couldn't help licking the corners of his lips. The next second, he activated the array. Buzz. In an instant, the sacrificial array burst into a fiery blood light. Pure abyssal energy merged into the survivors' bodies, making their faces more hideous and ugly. In the command center of the giant canyon, the atmosphere was extremely solemn. The picture on the big screen was like a doomsday picture, displayed in front of everyone. Ducao frowned, his eyes fixed on the screen, as if he wanted to deeply imprint Yihao in his mind. In the picture, Yihao was standing on an empty sidewalk, surrounded by thick black fog. The black fog was as red as ink, as if it was an evil force gushing out from the depths of hell, and every wisp was filled with the breath of destruction. Its shape was constantly changing, sometimes like a hideous beast, sometimes like a twisted ghost, which was chilling. As Yihao moved, the black fog became thicker, as if it was going to swallow up the whole world. It kept surging and expanding, with a suffocating sense of oppression. Everything around seemed to be distorted and blurred under its influence, as if even time and space were distorted by this power. Chapter 3. The officers in the command room watched this scene, and their hearts beat violently. Some of them showed a look of horror, while others widened their eyes in disbelief. They had never seen such a terrifying aura, as if this power was enough to destroy the whole world. "What kind of monster is this?" someone asked in a trembling voice. "I don't know, but it is definitely not a power that creatures on Earth can possess." Another person took a deep breath and tried to calm the fear in his heart. Liang Bing stood aside, her brows knitted, and a trace of solemnity flashed in her eyes. As a former senior scientific researcher of the Dinner civilization, she knew the horror of this power. She tried to use the Dinner 2 system to detect Yihao's strength, but the result shocked her. "General, our system cannot detect this person's strength," Liang Bing said in a deep voice. "His energy system is extremely weird and completely beyond our understanding." Ducao's face became even gloomier when he heard this. He knew what this meant. They might be facing an unprecedented powerful enemy. No matter who he is, if he dares to kill people in China, he must pay the price. Ducao snorted coldly, with a hint of murderous intent in his eyes. "Send nearby troops to support immediately, and make sure to kill him completely." He wanted to do it himself, and cut this damn guy into pieces. That's a whole street, thousands of lives. He couldn't let it go no matter what. Boom. Soon, one fighter after another on the Juxia took off and rushed towards Juxia City. They were ready to tear the figure shrouded in black mist into pieces. At the same time, Juxia City was shrouded in tension and chaos. Under the night, the neon lights of the city should have flashed warmth and tranquility. But at this moment, these colorful lights seemed to be the foil of the alarm lights, adding a bit of weirdness to the tense atmosphere of the city. Quick! Quick! Emergency assembly! The sharp shouts cut through the night sky, like a piercing alarm, making people feel nervous. Police cars flashed red and blue lights, like ghosts in the dark night, rushing over. The friction between the wheels and the ground and the sirens intertwined to form a tense symphony. Sizzle! The shrill alarm sounded again, like a sign before the arrival of the god of death, making people's heartbeats accelerate. People who were originally immersed in dreams were awakened, and their sleepiness disappeared, replaced by fear and confusion. Damn! What happened? Someone shouted in panic, with obvious tremors in his voice. Pack up and run away quickly. I heard that there was a terrorist attack in Area A. Another person urged anxiously, with fear written all over his face. Damn it! Which B************* D did it? How dare he be so bold? Someone else cursed angrily, but more of it was fear of the unknown. Don't waste time. If it's any later, we will all be dead. Someone urged his companions, his tone full of panic. The whole city seemed to be in chaos. People were scrambling to escape, their faces full of fear and anxiety. On the streets, pedestrians were in a hurry, cars were speeding. Everyone wanted to escape from this dangerous place as soon as possible. In a police car, Qilin looked at the panicked and frightened faces outside the window, her heart full of anxiety. Her plump chest rose and fell violently because of nervousness, and the police number 520520 on her chest made a slight friction sound because of the beating of her heart. Her beautiful eyes flashed with curiosity and confusion, and she murmured to herself, "What happened?" Qiangwei, who was sitting in the driver's seat, shook her head, indicating that she had no idea of the situation. She comforted, "Qilin, don't worry. We are still very safe in our country, don't worry." Although she said so, her tone could not help but reveal a bit of worry. Soon, the sirens resounded throughout the city, and countless police cars and ambulances gathered from all directions, rushing wildly in a certain direction. These vehicles shuttled through the streets of the city like giant steel dragons. For a moment, the entire Juxia city seemed to have become a vegetable market, noisy. Yihao didn't care about all this. At this time, he had completely entered a state of selflessness and was finishing the transformation ceremony of the Abyss Demon. Around him, black fog rolled, and the smell of evil and destruction was pervasive, just like the appearance of hell in the legend, as if the devil had descended to the world. As time passed, the evil breath in the bodies of those survivors became more and more intense. The black smoke surrounding their bodies slowly dispersed, revealing a brand new appearance. They suddenly turned into a group of abyss demons with hideous faces. They looked like humans, more than 2 meters tall, with wings on their backs, covered with heavy armor, and looked ferocious. Roar! The first thing they did when they turned into abyss demons was to attack Yihao. An abyss demon rushed out first and rushed straight to Yihao. He stretched out his claws to grab Yihao, trying to break the opponent's defense, but failed. Yihao's strength was extremely terrifying to them. Just a casual blow was enough to destroy these guys who had just transformed into abyss demons. They were just little demons in the growth stage, very fragile. Bang! The abyss demon flew backwards and hit a building hard, smashing it on the spot. Then, more abyss demons rushed over, but they were all killed instantly. None of them could hurt Yihao, and they couldn't even touch the corner of his clothes. He was wearing black armor, like a demon god descending to the earth. Every step he took would cause a huge black ripple under his feet. Wherever he passed, blood and flesh flew everywhere, and no corpses were left. Yihao didn't care about the life and death of these demons. His purpose of transforming them was just to obtain the gift of the Abyss Will. As for whether they were injured or dead, he didn't care. Bang! 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 Every time Yihao took a step forward, terrifying ripples would ripple around him. The Abyss demons were unable to resist his fierce attack and could only watch themselves being destroyed in an instant, and finally turned into ashes and dissipated into the air. Chapter 4. Plop. The remaining Abyss demons were finally frightened and fell to their knees, trembling. They did not dare to attack Yihao again, but prostrated themselves on the ground, extremely respectful. These demons were not mindless monsters. They were once humans and possessed wisdom. Therefore, they naturally understood the creed of the strong, and the weak should kneel before the strong and submit respectfully. Swish! At this moment, the gift of the Abyss will finally arrived. The vast and majestic pure power poured down like a landslide and tsunami, pouring into Yihao's body, causing his strength to surge instantly. Crack, crack. The bones in Yihao's body made crisp sounds, as if they were about to be reborn. He suddenly opened his eyes, and in the depths of his pupils, the scarlet light shone with a strange luster. A wisp of cold and eerie air spread out, covering the entire Juxia city. It was creepy, and it felt like thousands of evil ghosts were howling and wailing. Huff! Yihao slowly exhaled a breath of foul air. As the foul air blew out, the air around him suddenly became a little colder. He raised his arm, clenched his fist, and cracked his knuckles. Thunderous cracking sounds came from between his knuckles. His strength has been greatly improved. He has become a mature lower-level demon and is only one step away from the peak. Congratulations, great Demon Lord. The Demon Lord is mighty and domineering. You will always be our faith. Great Demon Lord, thank you for giving us eternal life. The Abyss demons knelt down and worshipped Yihao. They had no concept of courtesy, righteousness, and shame. Only strength is the truth. In the face of absolute power, everything else is as small as floating clouds. And don't look at these demons being so respectful now. If they have a chance, they will kill Yihao without hesitation. There is no such thing as loyalty in the Endless Abyss. As long as you are strong enough, you can kill the will of the Abyss. In the Endless Abyss, if you want to get a demon loyal to you, you can only use some special means. Control everything about the other party. Otherwise, betrayal is the main theme. Go. Kill and destroy. Yihao ordered indifferently. Follow your will. Great Demon Lord. The Abyss demons respectfully received the order. Then, they all took off into the air, turned into dark streams, and killed towards the nearby streets. Hee, Demon Lord. Yihao chuckled and murmured. He can't be called the Demon Lord now, but he believes that as long as he keeps living, he can reach the peak sooner or later. By then, it is not impossible to control the Endless Abyss. The difficulty is self-evident, but there must be dreams. As for the life and death of these Abyss demons, he doesn't care. This is just the Abyss demon he transformed, and he did not inherit the Abyss demon. At most, he is a little tougher, and his means are as different as the real Abyss demon, not to mention his Shadow demon. When the Shadow demon grows to a certain level, it can manipulate time fragments to trap the enemy in a time loop, regress, or accelerate. It can also hide in the Shadow dimension and launch a fatal sneak attack. In addition, the Shadow demon can even distort time and space to create a portal to other worlds, and this is only part of the Shadow demon's innate ability. Therefore, Yihao doesn't care about these transformed Abyss demons at all. Of course, these abilities require his strength to be improved to a certain level before they can be used. Now he could only enter the Shadow dimension to hide his body. This was also the means for him to survive in the Endless Abyss. This time the harvest is not bad. Yihao looked around. At this moment, although he was still wearing black armor, his temperament was completely different. He looked very evil, full of danger and fear. The blood in his body was extremely vigorous, just like a flame burning, causing the temperature around him to rise a lot. Even faintly, there was a trace of burning. Rumble suddenly, several roars that shook the sky came. Then, a series of fighting machines rushed from a distance and quickly fired at the Abyss demons scattered below. Whoosh! A sharp and piercing sound of breaking through the air came. Dense missiles were seen dragging long tails, ejected from the fighters, carrying the terrible power of destroying the world, and fell directly into the group of Abyss demons. Boom, 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 boom. A violent explosion occurred. Endless flames and terrifying shock waves swept in all directions. In the blink of an eye, hundreds of Abyss demons were devoured. Yihao's face was calm, and he was not too surprised by such a result. He had expected this to happen. After all, they were just little demons that had just been transformed, and they were still not good enough in front of the pre-nuclear civilization. However, he was not worried about these little demons, but a playful arc appeared at the corner of his mouth. He really wanted to know how long these little demons could last under the artillery attack of the pre-nuclear civilization. Whoosh! Whoosh! Another missile broke through the clouds and blasted towards the little demons. In an instant, the sky was filled with gunpowder smoke. One charred corpse after another fell down. The defense of the little demons did not offset the terrible destructive power of the missiles. Despite this, many little demons still rushed out of the bombing area, entered the residential area, and began to slaughter wantonly. Boom, boom, boom. The little devil waved its ferocious claws and kept grabbing at the ordinary residents. Suddenly, there were continuous screams. Blood was spilled on the spot. Damn it! The fighter pilot looked at the blood that was constantly overflowing on the monitoring screen, and his face became particularly ugly. This is a sin. Kill all these monsters for me. The fighter pilot roared angrily. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The machine guns on the fighter were firing frantically. The bullets tore through the void and shot down. Bang, bang, bang. The bullets hit the little devil's body and made a dull sound. The little devil was covered with scars. However, they were not seriously injured. They just stopped for a moment. Keep killing. Chapter 5. At the same time, above the sky, dazzling streams of light streaked across the sky, accompanied by sharp whistling sounds. Those were precision-guided missiles, bombarding Yihao's position with the force of thunder. Yihao looked calm, standing still, his eyes as deep as the abyss, staring at the missiles in the sky, calm and composed. It seemed that in his eyes, those missiles were just toys, without any threat. Just as the missiles were about to hit Yihao, he flicked his fingers, and a dark light burst out from his fingertips, which was like a meteor in the night sky, drawing a series of brilliant trajectories. These lights quickly intertwined together to form an invisible mesh barrier, like a huge spider web, firmly blocking the whistling missiles. Bang, bang, bang. The explosions rang out one after another, deafening. Those missiles hit the mesh barrier fiercely, bursting out strong flames and shock waves. However, the mesh barrier was like an indestructible fortress, defusing the missile attacks one by one. The pilots on the fighter planes witnessed this scene. All of them were stunned, and their hearts were filled with endless shock. They couldn't imagine that there was someone in this world who could withstand so many missile attacks so easily. Keep attacking. Destroy him at all costs. Dukeo's voice sounded in the communicator, with a hint of unquestionable determination. The pilots took a deep breath and continued to attack the fighter planes. However, their attacks seemed so pale and powerless in front of Yihao. The demon wings behind Yihao flapped lightly, and his figure disappeared from the spot like a ghost. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. There were bursts of sharp air-breaking sounds in the air, which were the sounds of missiles passing through the air. However, these sounds seemed to have nothing to do with Yihao. His figure was erratic in the air, sometimes appearing on the left, sometimes on the right, easily avoiding the attacks of missiles one by one. His speed was so fast that it was dazzling, and people could only barely catch a trace of his afterimage. Puff, puff. The missile exploded in the air, and the flames splashed everywhere, but Yihao was like a fish in water, moving freely in the sea of fire. His figure suddenly stopped, stretched out his arm, bent his 5 fingers, and suddenly clenched them. Crack! A majestic power burst out from him, sweeping across the sky in an instant. Then, a fighter plane disintegrated in the air, turning into fragments all over the sky, blooming like fireworks. The remaining fighter pilots all stared with their eyes wide open. Who on earth is this guy? How can he be so strong? Moreover, he has a ghostly speed. How can people survive this? Boom, boom, boom. Huge explosions came one after another. Those little demons rushed out frantically. They rushed towards the city recklessly. Houses were destroyed one after another, and large numbers of residents were slaughtered. The whole city was in a mess. Damn it! Dukeo looked at the scene. His fists creaked. His chest seemed to be hit by a hammer, and he was furious. Where are the troops? All nearby troops should send support quickly. We must kill all these damn monsters. He gritted his teeth and said, Yes. Lian Feng beside him quickly agreed. She picked up the communicator and urged the deployment of nearby troops. On the other side, Yihao easily destroyed all the fighters, and then he looked up at the distance with disdain. He knew very well that the so-called war maniac Dukeo must have been monitoring the Earth. Otherwise, fighters would not arrive so soon. But, so what? He was not afraid. The next second, Yihao flashed. Swish! Almost instantly, his body disappeared from the spot. These little demons are enough for them to drink a pot. What's more, the strength of the little demons is not static. As long as they devour enough flesh and blood souls, their strength will increase. Because the existence of the abyss demons is like a bug in the game for all the worlds. As long as there are enough resources, they can grow wildly. This is the real scary place. Of course, Yihao dared to let them grow, and naturally he had already arranged a backup plan. He left a mark deep in the souls of these little demons. When they mature, they will become food for Yihao's growth. And these little demons are dead. Their dead bodies are still a source of pollution, which will subtly pollute everything that has come into contact with them. How could Yi Hao be able to survive in the endless abyss with simple means? In the command room of the giant canyon, the atmosphere was tense and depressing. The screen on the big screen kept switching, showing various situations at the battle site. Ducao stared at the screen, and his expression became more and more solemn. His brows were furrowed, and anger and helplessness flashed in his eyes. The strength of that monster was beyond his imagination. He never expected that the monster could defeat the fighter formation alone and kill them all. Now he wanted to send a fighter formation again to the battle site for support, but he couldn't find Yi Hao at all. He didn't know where the monster had gone. The Dinner 2 system lost its trace. Damn it, Ducao cursed. He could only let the fighter formation destroy the remaining monsters first. Otherwise, if left alone, the whole city would suffer a catastrophe. Chapter 6. General, do you think these monsters are related to the demon civilization? At this time, Liang Bing, who was looking up information in the dinner database, suddenly asked. Ducao was stunned and fell into thought. He vaguely felt that what Liang Bing said seemed to be possible. However, he could not make a random judgment before there was evidence. After all, this kind of thing involves too many things. If it is really found out that it is related to the demon civilization, then the Earth will be in trouble. This shows that the Earth has been targeted by other advanced civilizations and may be in danger of destruction at any time. Immediately recover some monster corpses for analysis to see what they are. Ducao ordered Liang Bing. If he knew that everything that came into contact with the corpses of the abyss demons would be subtly abyssalized, then he would not dare to take those demon corpses for research. It's a pity that he knew nothing about it. Liang Bing nodded quickly, with an unusual solemnity in her beautiful eyes. Understood, General. Ducao's eyes turned to the screen again, and the screen showed a chaotic battle scene. He took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. He knew that the most important thing now was to stay calm and rational in order to make the right decision. Galaxy Power Gu Xiaoluan, no Star War God Lu Chuang. How are they now? Ducao turned to ask Yuqin beside him. Yuqin immediately replied. They have safely left Juxia City and are on their way to the Super God Academy. They are in good condition and are not injured. Hearing this news, Ducao finally breathed a sigh of relief. Galaxy Power Gu Xiaoluan and no Star War God Lu Chuang are the hope of the future of the Earth. The super genes in them are the precious wealth left by the Dino civilization. If something goes wrong, it will be a heavy loss. Then, he remembered something again. His eyes slightly condensed. By the way, where is Qiangwei? Where did she go? Didn't I ask her to stay where she is? Qiangwei. Yuqin hesitated. Go on. Ducao frowned. Alas, this is it. Yuqin sighed and spoke slowly. What? After listening to Yuqin's narration, Ducao's face suddenly became extremely gloomy, and he was furious. ****. Who told her to go to Juxia City without permission? Don't you know how dangerous this is? General, you also know that the pilots who died before were all Qiangwei's comrades in arms. She wanted to go and avenge her comrades in arms in person, and with Qiangwei's time and space genes, she can still escape if she can't win. Yuqin continued to persuade. Hearing this, Ducao smiled helplessly. Qiangwei, this girl. He shook his head and finally waved his hand. Forget it. Let her do whatever she wants. Anyway, Qiangwei will not really be in danger. You should pay attention to her whereabouts. After that, he closed his eyes to rest and rubbed his eyebrows tiredly. General, do we need to let Wukong take action? Yuqin hesitated for a while and finally asked. Ducao opened his eyes and frowned. Well, let's notify Wukong. Finally, Ducao sighed helplessly. Wukong can now be said to be the strongest trump card on Earth. At least before the Galaxy Power and the No Star War God grew up, Wukong was definitely the strongest existence on Earth. Yes, I will contact him immediately. In Juxia City, the flames shot up to the sky. A large number of little demons scattered around. They roared violently, continuously destroying buildings and slaughtering lives. In an overturned police car, Qilin curled up in a delicate posture and sat in the back seat. Her face was extremely pale. She was trembling all over, and the pain made her uncomfortable, and her other colleagues fell into a coma due to the violent impact. Qilin bit her lip, trying to suppress the piercing pain, and she turned her head with difficulty to look at the little demon outside the police car. It was this little devil who flipped the police car over. It was burly, with bulging muscles and dark scales all over its body. It looked like a wild beast. It was ferocious and terrifying. Especially the two scarlet eyes were filled with violence and bloodthirstiness, which made people palpitate and shudder. Bang, bang, bang. The little devil took a step and approached the police car. He smashed the glass with a punch. Qilin endured the severe pain and took out a pistol to shoot at the little devil. Bang, bang, bang. The little devil directly attacked with a pistol and quickly approached Qilin. Qilin's forehead was full of sweat, and she felt that she could not hold on any longer. But even so, she still raised her head stubbornly, staring at the little devil with her unyielding eyes, as if she was using her eyes to declare her unyielding belief. Click. The little devil raised his thick arms, grabbed the car door, and tore it open with force. It showed its sharp claws and fangs, let out a low roar, and then stretched out its tongue to lick the blood on its palm, looking very excited. Qilin's pretty face was extremely pale. The little devil grinned, suddenly jumped up, and rushed towards Qilin. Puff! I saw a big hand suddenly stretched out from the void. It landed lightly on the little devil's chest. Crack! With a crisp crack, the little devil's chest burst directly, with a collection of cracks. Its spine was broken, and its internal organs were shattered. It didn't even have any room for resistance, and was easily crushed by the big hand. Snap! The blood plasma burst and spilled all over the ground. Qilin's eyes were widened in astonishment, and she stared at this scene dully. What happened just now was simply too incredible. A handsome man in black armor appeared out of thin air. With a few words, he killed the monster. This is really too exaggerated. Is that guy a human or a ghost? Or a secret force of the country? Thank you, Qilin murmured as she looked at the man who suddenly appeared. Although she didn't know the man's origin, she knew that he saved her life. Yihao looked up and down at the girl in front of him. Her exquisite appearance, beautiful figure, stubbornness, and perseverance, especially the police number 520520, made Yihao instantly guess the other party's identity. You are Qilin, Yihao affirmed. This is really a long memory. Once upon a time, I was still an ordinary social animal, busy every day. I read novels and animations and played games when I had nothing to do. Who would have thought that the former anime characters would appear alive in front of me now, which is really interesting. Does he know me? Qilin blinked her eyes and was a little surprised. But I don't seem to know him. Who is this guy? Qilin was confused. She recalled it carefully and was sure that this was the first time she met this guy. But why did this guy help her? Could it really be the country's secret forces? After all, there are monsters. It's normal for the country to have some special secret forces, right? Chapter 7. No. What are you thinking about? It's important to save people now. Weilon and the others are still unconscious. Qilin quickly gathered her thoughts. She asked, can you get us out of the police car first? She looked like she was begging, hoping that Yihao could help. After all, the other party had already killed the monster. In theory, he should be able to easily rescue her and others. Yihao raised his eyebrows but did not speak. At this time, Qilin's pupils suddenly contracted, because she suddenly found that monsters appeared around the police car. They were all the same as the monsters just now. At this moment, Qilin felt an endless chill in her heart. Be careful, she shouted subconsciously. However, she found that the other party was still looking at her up and down without any care, and did not take these terrifying and ferocious monsters seriously at all. This man, inexplicable. In particular, his eyes revealed his desire for aggression without any disguise. Qilin was a little annoyed. Even though the other party saved her life, she didn't like others looking at her with such naked eyes. She felt like a lamb to be slaughtered, and a beautiful and attractive little lamb. Why do you think I'm here to save you? Yihao looked at her with interest, admiring her angry, embarrassed, flustered, and somewhat worried expression. Very interesting, especially interesting. It's a really good toy. If it was in the endless abyss, he wouldn't have the leisure to tease his prey. But, in this world, Yihao didn't mind playing with a prey in his spare time. His words were very calm, even a little playful, but it made Qilin stiff in place. She opened her eyes wide and stared at the other party blankly. How could this happen? You? What do you mean? Qilin bit her thin lips and asked weakly. Her tone was a bit pleading. Because she found that the monsters around her were gathering more and more. The number exceeded more than 20. Among them, there was even a monster that was obviously stronger. This was definitely the most dangerous scene she had ever encountered. Yihao looked around with ease and sighed in his heart. The main material plane is the main material plane, and the little devil has entered the mature stage so soon. Really good. Qilin discovered something terrifying at this time. These monsters seemed to be full of fear for the man in front of them, and dared not step forward. How could it be possible? There were more than 20 monsters, and the size of one of them was much larger than the others. Qilin's heart stopped beating. In her mind, there was only one sentence left. It's over. This time it's completely ruined. She thought that after this mysterious man appeared, she and others might be able to escape. But the result proved that she was too naive. Perhaps these monsters have a close relationship with this mysterious man. That's why they are so afraid of him. Now, trouble. Qilin's eyes dimmed, and she collapsed. She was in a state of despair, not knowing how to solve the current dilemma. Could it be? Is she really going to die here today? Qilin closed her eyes and waited for death to come. Dada, bang bang bang. Suddenly, a burst of rapid gunfire came from a distance. Qilin opened her eyes and looked at the source of the gunfire. Then, she was stunned. 3 armored vehicles were slowly approaching at the corner of the street. Behind the armored vehicles, a group of soldiers with live ammunition followed. Qilin rubbed her eyes in surprise, thinking she had seen it wrong. But when she looked again, she found that those people were indeed soldiers, and they were wearing camouflage uniforms. Could it be that this was... Qilin was so excited that she almost cried out. These soldiers must be here to support them. She finally found a sense of security. But, she thought again, can the army really deal with these monsters? Especially, the more terrifying mysterious man in front of her. He can kill monsters in seconds? So, can the army win? Qilin was nervous. However, she soon abandoned this idea. She is a police officer. As a professional police officer, you must stay calm when facing such a crisis. You must not lose your composure. Yihao looked at the army. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Then, he raised his right fist and blasted it towards the ground. Bang! A dull, loud noise exploded. A visible air wave spread from his fingers. The air wave rolled, forming ripples. Everything along the way was shattered. The group of soldiers also received a strong impact, and the armored vehicle was directly blown away. Puff, 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 they fell in a pool of blood, wailing in pain and struggling constantly. How is this possible? Qilin was stunned. She didn't see clearly how Yihao made his move. The army became so miserable. At this time, the little demons surrounding the police car rushed towards the army without hesitation and bit them madly. Qilin's eyes widened, and her heart couldn't help but twitch violently when she saw this scene. You demon! She stared at Yihao with gritted teeth. Thank you for the compliment. Yihao grinned, revealing his snow-white teeth. But you should call me the Abyss Demon. After that, Yihao took Qilin out of the police car and disappeared in a flash. This is a real-life figurine, of course I have to take it away to have fun. Chapter 8. Not long after Yihao disappeared, Rose walked out of the wormhole. Looking at the surrounding scenes, her expression suddenly darkened, and her eyes flashed with cold and piercing murderous intent. She did not hesitate, and immediately used the wormhole technology to cooperate with the surviving army to launch a crazy attack on those little demons. After a melee, Rose successfully left the area with the remaining survivors. Finally left. Damn, I was scared to death. They all spit out the turbid air accumulated in their chests, and their faces showed a look of relief after surviving the disaster. This mission was really thrilling. Who of you has seen Qilin? The survivor He Weilon held the photo in the mobile phone and asked the people around him with an ugly face. Everyone looked at each other, and no one spoke. He Weilon's face became uglier, and her eyes gradually turned red. She knew in her heart that this meant that Qilin might have. She was a little bit overwhelmed. Don't be sad. Maybe she's still alive. At this time, another female police officer comforted her. I hope so. He Weilon sighed and shook her head. She looked at Qiangwei. She was curious about this super soldier with special abilities. Sir, how can I become a super soldier? Along the way, she saw Qiangwei defeat the little devil with her extraordinary power. Now she is full of desire for power and wishes she could have the powerful power of Qiangwei immediately. Hearing this, Qiangwei was slightly startled. Then, she thought seriously for a moment, and then slowly said, Sorry, this is confidential. Hearing Qiangwei's answer, He Weilon nodded slightly to show her understanding. After all, Qiangwei's ability must be classified as confidential in the military. She did not continue to dwell on this issue, but changed the subject and said, Thanks to you this time. Otherwise, we are really finished this time. Her tone was full of gratitude and relief. It should be, Rose replied calmly. Then she looked at the other soldiers and ordered, You should escort the wounded back to the city hospital for treatment first. Remember, you must pay attention to safety. Yes, sir. The soldiers took the order and left with the wounded. At this time, Rose looked at Qilin and said indifferently, "You should also retreat quickly. I still have to save others." Well, okay. They did not notice that there was the obscure red light flashing on them, and Rose was preparing to go to other areas for support. As for Yihao, the culprit, she could only put it aside for the time being. As long as she thought of what the B***************** D had done, she would be furious and wanted to kill him now. But now is obviously not the time. Saving people is more important, but she will definitely not let him go. On the other side, what are you going to do? Qilin's face was horrified. What should I do? What do you think? Yihao smiled evilly and threw Qilin into an empty villa. He did not do anything immediately, but sat on the sofa, crossed his legs, and looked at Qilin leisurely. Qilin was frightened and quickly hugged her collar, looking at Yihao vigilantly. You? What on earth are you? Her already plump breasts became more upright because of fear, as if they were about to burst out. Yihao glanced at her cute appearance without concealment. Guess? You damn devil. Qilin was furious. However, Yihao ignored her words. As an abyss demon, he didn't need to hide anything, because the abyss demon itself was a symbol of evil. He stood up and approached Qilin, stretched out his hand to lift her chin, and looked down at her. Don't worry, I don't plan to eat you for the time being. Eat me? Qilin couldn't help but think of the scenes of those monsters eating people, and her whole body trembled violently, but she still tried to stay calm. Could it be that he is really a monster too? Thinking of this, Qilin suddenly panicked, because she remembered that he had said before that he should be called an abyss demon. Moreover, his style of behavior is extremely brutal. He wouldn't really plan to eat himself. Thinking of this, Qilin couldn't help but curl up in fear. The slender beauty legs were tightly clamped, like a kitten being hunted. Why, what are you afraid of? Seeing Qilin shivering, Yihao chuckled. He raised his hand and stroked Qilin's delicate face, with a strong sense of playfulness in his eyes. I think your skin is very delicate. It should be more delicious. What do you think? No, not delicious, Qilin said palely after hearing Yihao's words. She was very scared now, and even felt a little desperate. She would rather die than be used as food, eaten alive by monsters. It's unacceptable to think about it. Yihao suddenly retracted his palm, and with a cold look, he made a black mark on Qilin's body, and at the same time, a wicked arc appeared at the corner of his mouth, and he sat back on the sofa. Qilin was left with a confused face. What's wrong with this guy? Is he going to let her go? Qilin was stunned and couldn't react for a long time. What did you put in me just now? She finally couldn't help but ask. Yihao glanced at her. Abyss contract. Abyss contract? Qilin looked confused. She had never heard of this term. You can think of it as a slave contract, Yihao said lightly. Slave contract. When these 4 words appeared, Qilin's expression froze instantly. Although she didn't know what the abyss contract was, but she could understand what a slave contract meant. Slave contract, enslave slaves, let them drive you. This was the only word she could think of in her mind. Then wouldn't I become his slave? Qilin's face turned pale. She never expected that she would become someone else's slave one day. This must be fake. How could there be such a thing as a slave contract in this world? Qilin comforted herself in her heart. She didn't want to believe this truth. Chapter 9. Yihao didn't care about Qilin's reaction. The abyss contract had been signed. He had plenty of time to play slowly. No need to rush. Let's improve our strength first. Yihao's mind moved, and he took out the blood-colored energy beads from the space in his body and began to devour them. According to his estimation, after devouring these blood-colored energy beads, he should be able to enter the peak period. At that time, he can prepare for the promotion to the middle-level demon. According to his previous layout and plan, as long as the time comes, he will detonate the means arranged on those little demons, which will be enough to make the entire Juxia City fall completely and become a purgatory. At that time, Juxia City will become the lair of the abyss demons. Boom! The blood-colored energy beads continued to explode, turning into a majestic energy and madly poured into Yihao's body. Yihao's body continued to expand, expanding rapidly like a balloon. In just a few seconds, he changed from a human form to a hideous body, covered with black armor, and a pair of demon wings on his back. At this moment, Yihao was like the legendary devil coming to the world. Moreover, The most shocking thing was that a pair of demon horns actually grew on his forehead. He is really the Abyss Demon. Qilin opened her eyes wide in astonishment, as if she had seen a ghost. She almost suspected that she was dreaming, otherwise, how could she encounter such a thing? She endured the pain and rushed out of the villa quickly. She wanted to escape from here. No matter what, she couldn't let herself fall into the hands of this Abyss Demon. As for the Abyss contract or the slave contract, she just wanted to escape far away. Yihao did not stop him and was even a little excited. The prey that can resist is the good prey. If he doesn't resist, he will find it boring. Qilin rushed out of the villa in one breath. Her face was extremely pale, and her heart was pounding fast. She had never tried to run so fast. Huff, huff. She panted heavily. Her whole body was soaked with sweat. When she finally stopped, she noticed the surrounding scene and environment. She found that there was a light on not far away. There was obviously someone there. Qilin hurriedly stepped forward and rushed in that direction. Stop! I saw a team of fully armed soldiers guarding the intersection to maintain order. They were wearing camouflage uniforms, holding submachine guns, and staring at Qilin vigilantly. I want to see your leader. Take me to see your leader, Qilin said anxiously. She needed to tell them the news of the terrifying demon. Otherwise, once the demon started killing, the consequences would be unimaginable. At this moment, something strange happened. I saw that Qilin's body quickly condensed a set of ice-blue scales at a speed visible to the naked eye. At the same time, an extremely cold ice element spread from the scales. Qilin's appearance also changed. Half of her cheek quickly turned into frost, and the other half was white and tender, emitting an attractive luster. It's a monster! Fire! The soldiers were shocked when they saw this scene, and then they shouted loudly, Da-da-da-da! In an instant, a hail of bullets attacked. Qilin couldn't believe it. How could this happen? She is obviously a human. Why did it suddenly turn into a monster? Moreover, it also has the element of ice. This is too unbelievable. Could it be because of the so-called Abyss contract? Qilin gritted her teeth and hated the Abyss Demon. All this was his fault. She wanted to explain, but found that she couldn't speak at all. She could only make some meaningless roars. Bang, 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 bang. The bullets shot at Qilin. All were blocked by the ice-attributed scales. The scales on her body had a cold metallic luster, and the toughness was even more horrifying. How is this possible? The soldiers were all stunned after seeing this scene. Although they knew that monsters were terrifying, this was the first time a monster appeared in this area. Unexpectedly, under the hail of bullets, this monster was actually unscathed. This completely overturned their understanding. They did not hesitate to call for support while continuing to attack. Inside the villa, Yihao had already devoured the blood-colored energy beads and became a lower-level demon at the peak. With his current strength, he was not afraid of a nuclear explosion. At this time, he watched Qilin's situation through the Abyss contract. He looked at Qilin's changes with interest, with a faint smile on his lips. After signing the Abyss contract, he would naturally be eroded by the Abyss. However, Qilin did not expect to gain the ability of the Cold Abyss Demon. Not bad. The Cold Abyss Demon is one of the several demons in the Abyss that are quite standard, good at controlling ice elements. Naturally, it is not as powerful as Yihao, the Time Shadow Demon. In the Endless Abyss, demons with the gift of time and space are all top-level existences. However, Qilin's appearance of standing and being beaten makes Yihao feel a little embarrassed for the Abyss. Give you two choices. 1. I control you to kill them all. 2. You transform them into Abyss demons. Yihao's cold voice was transmitted to Qilin's mind through the Abyss contract. He gave Qilin the Abyss contract, not just for a toy. Instead, he was going to start training his own subordinate Abyss demon to lay the foundation for becoming the Abyss Lord. Qilin's delicate body trembled. She did not expect that this Abyss contract could actually allow the demon to monitor her in real time. She was about to refuse. But then, she thought that the demon would not be merciful. Once she refused, these soldiers would surely die. Immediately, she gritted her teeth and agreed to transform them into demons. After Qilin made the decision, she did not hold back. In an instant, she froze all the soldiers into ice sculptures. Then, she used the secret technique in the memory of the Cold Abyss Demon inheritance and began to transform these soldiers into the lower-level demons of the Cold Abyss Demon, the Ice Demon. Yihao looked at Qilin's actions and nodded with satisfaction. It seems that this figure knows how to judge the situation. Soon, Qilin transformed all the soldiers into cold abyss demons. Then, she raised her eyes and looked at the villa where Yihao was. Swish! She turned into a burst of blue light and rushed into the villa in an instant. Hiss, hiss, hiss. Qilin just opened her mouth to say something, but found that she could only make meaningless hisses. Qilin frowned slightly. A trace of confusion appeared in her eyes. Chapter 10. If you want to talk, digest the inherited memory well, Yihao said lazily. He lay on the sofa, one hand supporting his forehead, the other holding a red wine glass. His posture was lazy and evil, as if he controlled everything, like a king, high above, looking down on everything, as if he could control all fate and future, as if he dominated the world, full of dominance. At this time, the gift of the will of the abyss came. It made Yihao's strength improve a little again. Qilin was his slave who used the abyss contract, and everything he got naturally belonged to him. Just now, Qilin transformed those soldiers into ice demons, and Yihao naturally received the gift of the will of the abyss. At this time, Qilin's beautiful eyes flashed with a faint light, and her originally pure and beautiful face, because of the demonization of the cold abyss, had a hint of evil. She looked at Yihao with a strong hatred, as if she wanted to tear Yihao apart. Gradually, she calmed down and began to thoroughly absorb the inherited memories in her mind. Yihao looked at the demonized Qilin of Han Yuan unscrupulously. Compared with her original appearance, she was more beautiful after being demonized by Han Yuan, especially her delicate face, which was full of indifference and seductiveness, and her whole body exuded a temperament that made men want to conquer her. The demonized Qilin of Han Yuan is even more attractive. Yihao admired the picture in front of him. After Qilin absorbed the inherited memories in the abyss contract, she gradually understood many things. She exuded a cold breath. The biting coldness caused the temperature around to drop sharply, as if she was in the Arctic glacier, making people shiver. Yihao felt the fluctuations of Qilin's breath and gently shook the wine glass in his hand. The wine was frozen. He put down the wine glass and continued to admire the picture. After Qilin digested the records in the inherited memory, she also knew something about the endless abyss. The endless abyss is the gathering place of all the evils in the world. It is also the opposite of all kindness, beauty, justice, and bravery. Here, there is no friendship, family affection, love, loyalty. There is only endless killing, destruction, betrayal, and deception. Any creature who steps into the endless abyss will eventually fall into the abyss demon. No matter what kind of beautiful vision you once had, it is destined to become a falsehood. Only powerful power is eternal. For countless years, there have been many powerful people in the world who wanted to destroy the endless abyss, but they eventually became the nutrients of the endless abyss. This also makes the endless abyss the most dangerous and strange place in the world, and it is also a place that the powerful people in the world fear. Qilin digested the information in the inherited memory. She looked at Yihao, who was sitting next to her, with a faint light in her beautiful eyes. She didn't speak. She needed to digest the information she had obtained. Qilin exhaled and opened her eyes. How is it? Have you accepted the reality? Yihao walked over and looked at Qilin. He reached out and touched Qilin's cheek. Qilin's body shook violently. She wanted to dodge, but she found that she couldn't avoid it at all. Snap! Yihao's fingertips touched Qilin's skin, which was a little cold and smooth, making people want to caress it. Are you really the abyss demon? Qilin didn't want to believe this fact, but the inherited memory obtained from her mind told her that the guy in front of her was indeed the abyss demon. She could already imagine the scene of the entire Earth turning into the abyss, even the entire universe. For the endless abyss, the Earth or the universe is too small. The abyss will erode the entire universe sooner or later. Abyss demon? Yihao's mouth curled up a smile, and his fingers stroked Qilin's ice-blue scales. He whispered, "The coming of the abyss is unstoppable, and falling into the abyss is the final destination." Hearing this, Qilin's heart was filled with horror. She felt as if she had fallen into an ice cave. Her whole body was cold, as if even the blood had stopped flowing. She knew this was the truth, but she couldn't accept this cruel reality and couldn't understand the logic of the abyss demons. Is falling into the abyss the greatest honor for them? Yihao held her in his arms. Qilin felt the heat from the other's body, and her body trembled. I don't know what the taste of the cold abyss demon is different from that of the succubus and the fallen angel, Yihao whispered in her ear. At the same time, he couldn't help but think that there were angels in this world. I don't know if the angels in this world can become fallen angels after falling into the abyss. Thinking of this, he became more interested in the angel civilization of this world. Qilin's body softened. She obviously has powerful power now, but when facing Yihao, she has no power to resist, like a fish on a chopping board, letting the other party manipulate her, completely losing the ability to resist, which makes her feel panic in her heart. Let me go, I can do it myself. Qilin bit her cherry lips with her pearly teeth, and she said with difficulty. Her eyes flashed with determination. She doesn't like to be passive. She wanted to express with her actions that she was not a lamb to be needed by others. She was unwilling to become someone else's prey. Oh. Yihao raised his eyebrows, then he nodded. Okay. Yihao let go of Qilin. He looked at her with interest. Qilin pursed her lips, turned around, and walked towards the bedroom. Her figure was slender and tall, exuding a hint of coldness and arrogance, like a white lotus blooming on a snowy mountain, holy and elegant. And with the enchanting beauty that charms all beings, it makes people obsessed and intoxicated. Although her face is absolutely beautiful, her eyes are cold, giving people a feeling of being rejected thousands of miles away. Yihao followed into the bedroom. The room was spacious and luxuriously decorated. There were oil paintings hanging on the walls, which were ancient and revealed the charm of the Renaissance. There was also a cloakroom in the room, which was filled with various brand-name women's clothes, as well as high-end bags, shoeboxes, etc. The owner of this room was obviously a woman. Yihao sat directly on the bed, looking at Qilin, who took the initiative to walk towards him. His mouth slightly raised, revealing a hint of teasing, waiting for what was about to happen next. Chapter 11. Qilin slowly approached Yihao. As the distance between the two of them got closer and closer, the struggle in the depths of Qilin's eyes became clearer. She suddenly opened her arms, hugged Yihao tightly, and then kissed Yihao fiercely on the lips. Qilin sucked Yihao's lips clumsily. She sucked desperately like a greedy cat. She seemed to be venting her suppressed emotions. Ice cold. Yihao felt the softness of Qilin's lips. His big hand could not help but move slowly along Qilin's spine. His palm was warm and hot. Qilin's body stiffened, and she almost collapsed to the ground. She felt hot all over, and there was a strange impulse brewing in her body. Boom. At this moment, thunder roared in the sky, and dark clouds rolled, covering the sky. The rain fell cracklingly, wetting the ground, and a layer of light mist rose up. In the room, filled with ambiguous hormones, Qilin's pretty ice blue face flushed. She closed her beautiful eyes and felt the heat of Yihao's palm. She didn't expect that she would be so crazy, but she didn't reject it. Instead, she enjoyed it, because she found this feeling very wonderful. Unexpectedly, it was quite good. Boom. Suddenly, a thunder blast sounded out of nowhere, deafening. The sky darkened, and electric snakes flew. Crack, crack. Electric arcs ran wild in the sky, hitting the window glass, making a harsh explosion sound. Wow, the rain was getting heavier. In the rain curtain, the warriors who were transformed into ice demons by Qilin looked at their demon bodies blankly. Hiss, a strange sound came from their throats. They looked at their ice-blue demon bodies and felt very unfamiliar. At the same time, they also found that they could control the power of ice. What's going on? They couldn't help asking in their hearts. Could it be that the monster did it before? They looked up and looked at the heavy rain. Their hearts were filled with fear and confusion. They had turned into monsters, and this feeling was terrible. They had turned from soldiers who defended their country into monsters. Roar! They roared in anger, trying to drive away this inexplicable change. Unfortunately, everything was in vain. They could only stand there stupidly, enduring the heavy rain. At this time, Jusha City was seen from a god's perspective. A layer of red light that was invisible to the naked eye completely enveloped it. Under this red light, the entire Jusha City was rendered scarlet, as if soaked in blood. The erosion of the abyss spread rapidly with the spread of the little devil. Especially the area where Yihao stayed was completely covered by blood. Such a scene was extremely weird and terrifying. Inside the villa, Qilin sat above Yihao. At this time, she lost her coldness and became charming, shy, and full of temptation. Especially with the help of Yihao, the power of charm became stronger, intoxicating, and unable to extricate herself. Yihao watched Qilin switch back and forth between human form and cold abyss demon form, and fell into deep thought. Qilin entered this state really quickly. I'm afraid that it won't take long for her to master all the skills. Why did you suddenly change back to demon form? Suddenly, Qilin screamed. She felt a little painful. This made her frown, her body tense, sweating all over, her pretty face slightly red, and her legs clamped. Yihao's demon form is a 3-meter-high behemoth, with knotted muscles and full of explosive power. Isn't this exciting? Yihao said indifferently. He looked at Qilin above, with a wicked smile on his lips. His demon form was very powerful, and Qilin couldn't bear it now. This made her collapse a little. She thought she had made enough preparations. However, when Yihao's demon form came, she found out that she was wrong. Help! At this moment, Qilin just wanted to escape. She never thought that one day she would become like this. Let me go! Master! Woo-woo! Qilin cried and begged. She had no room for resistance. She even shouted the word master, just begging the demon to let her go. You have no right to refuse. Yihao looked down at Qilin below. At this moment, he was like a high king, controlling the fate of all demons. His voice was very gentle and calm, as if he was telling something that was normal. However, when Qilin heard it, she felt cold all over, and she had a bad premonition. It seems that the other party is not going to give up easily. The other party wants her to surrender completely, and then torture her severely. When Qilin thought of this possibility, her body trembled suddenly. She clenched her little pink fist tightly and tried to stay calm. Master, I will really die. Her body twisted because of the pain. Yihao's mouth drew a wicked arc. Don't worry, you are a cold abyss demon now. You will be fine. This sentence hit Qilin's mind like a bolt from the blue. Could it be that he turned himself into a demon because he was afraid that the human self could not withstand his destruction? Qilin thought of this possibility. Her heart beat violently, and for a moment, she didn't know what to do. Master! Master! Qilin bit her red lips with her pearly teeth. She raised her watery eyes and looked at Yihao. Her eyes were red, and tears were rolling in them, as if they were about to burst out, which made people pity her. Yihao was even more excited when he saw this scene. He was a demon of the abyss. His essence is the epitome of evil, violence, and greed. Qilin's pitiful appearance is simply teasing him. Yihao stretched out his big hand and touched Qilin's forehead. Qilin's forehead immediately transmitted a cold touch, making her tremble all over. Her body stiffened, and then slowly became soft again, like a puddle of mud. Chapter 12. Boom, boom, boom. Da-dee-dee. Suddenly, a burst of gunfire sounded not far from the villa area, deafening. Qilin, who was almost lost in desire, suddenly sobered up a lot. Her beautiful eyes flashed with the color of surviving a disaster. Master, there seems to be movement outside. After saying that, Qilin wanted to withdraw. Hiss, she moved slightly. A burst of severe pain came from her body. It turned out that just now, Yihao turned her over and let her lie on the bed. Qilin's pretty face turned pale. A warm breath sprayed on her body. The breath carried a strange power, making her whole body numb. Don't worry about them. It's just that the ice demon you transformed happened to meet the troops they called for support before, Yihao said in a calm tone. Qilin seemed to be just a large figurine in his hands. He fiddled with Qilin's graceful and delicate body with ease. Qilin was helpless. This master was too overbearing. He didn't allow her any chance to refute. Qilin could only bear it with gritted teeth. However, she still wanted to know the situation outside. Master, can you tell me what the situation outside is like? Qilin asked intermittently. Guess. Yihao said lightly. Qilin almost vomited blood out of anger. She wanted to strangle the master to death. However, she also understood that the current master was simply unyielding, and she had no way to deal with the master. Yihao stared at Qilin with interest. He didn't care about her thoughts. This guy. You wait for me. Wait until I become stronger than you. You will be in trouble. Qilin gritted her teeth and cursed in her heart. However, his strength was terrifying. Even if she became a cold abyss demon, she was still far behind. Bang, bang, bang. The gunshots continued. Obviously, the battle was not over yet. Yihao held Qilin's waist while casting the spell Projection Mirror. Suddenly, a light red screen appeared in front of him. The screen showed the battle outside the villa area. Several tanks, armored vehicles, and a group of well-trained soldiers were shooting wildly at a group of ice-blue ice demons. The scene was quite spectacular and also extremely thrilling. In the picture, the ice demons did not take the initiative to attack the soldiers. Instead, they looked at ease and dealt with the soldiers, as if they were worried about hurting them. These ice-blue ice demons are very powerful, especially their speed is extremely fast, and ordinary soldiers can't get close to them at all. Hiss roar. These ice demons roared and roared. They seemed to want to communicate with these soldiers. Some ice demons even had paper and pen in their hands and began to write. However, the soldiers did not dare to let these ice demons get close. After all, who knows if these monsters have good intentions? Kill, kill, kill all these monsters, the soldiers shouted, as if this would make them stronger and more courageous. However, their guns did not pose any threat to these ice demons. That is, the tank's artillery fire and some heavy weapons can barely cause fatal damage to the ice demon. However, even heavy firepower needs to be able to hit the opponent. The ice demon moves very fast and has extremely high defense. It is very difficult to kill it. Damn, these things are too fast. We can't hit them at all. An officer hurriedly reported the situation. Here is requesting fire support. Receive. Swish. In an instant, several fighters rushed over, hovering in the air, bombing those ice demons. Qilin looked at this scene in the light curtain, and her heart suddenly skipped a beat. Master, what should I do? These ice demons may not be able to bear it, Qilin said nervously, staring at Yi Hao with her beautiful eyes. These ice demons are all soldiers transformed by her, and she doesn't want them to be in trouble. Therefore, her little fists were clenched tightly. Watch out. Yi Hao smiled, his eyes sparkled. A mighty force burst out. The abyss power in his body was like a surging river, rushing endlessly. Boom! Yi Hao's eyes burst out, two soul-devouring black lights. Then, in the light curtain, two scarlet, ink-like dark lights shot up into the sky. Crack. Crack. Dark clouds as black as ink poured down from the sky. That was the thunder of destruction. Black lightning as thick as buckets shuttled through the void, tearing the void apart. Swish. Swish. Lightning struck fiercely on those fighters, tanks, and armored vehicles. In just a moment, all these war machines were destroyed. All the soldiers died. Only the ice demons were unscathed. Qilin collapsed. That was not what she meant at all. She just didn't want those ice demons to die. Not those soldiers to die. Why did her master understand it this way? Woohoo. Qilin's eyes were red. These soldiers died because of her. This made her feel guilty. At this moment, Yi Hao seemed to have done nothing. He hugged Qilin's slender waist, put his mouth close to her ear, and blew warm air gently. Isn't this what you want? He smiled playfully. His eyes were still cold. What I want them all to be alive. Qilin murmured aggrievedly. Alive? Yi Hao shook his head, and a cruel look appeared on his face. Then, Yi Hao stretched out his right hand and controlled the dense thunder in the sky. In an instant, black lightning flashing with black light fell like meteorites. Boom! Bang bang! A series of loud noises shook the fields. In an instant, the giant black lightnings hit the ice demons directly. The ice demons, who were already confused by the recent incident, were instantly smashed and died tragically on the spot. Everything returned to calm. Chapter 13. At this moment, Qilin was dazed. She lay on the bed in a daze, completely confused. Why is this happening? She obviously doesn't want these. Is the thinking of the abyss demon different from ours? Qilin's pretty face was as white as snow, and she was completely confused. It's all because of me that those soldiers were killed. Woo-woo. Qilin cried. She was very upset and wanted to cut herself into pieces. It's just some consumables. Yi Hao said calmly. Although his words were very simple, they were transmitted into Qilin's ears with endless demonic power. Buzz. In Qilin's mind, the abyss contract seemed to be pulled by something and suddenly jumped twice. All this happened too abruptly. Qilin felt that her mind was a little confused. An inexplicable irritability spread from Qilin's delicate body. Her cheeks became more and more hideous and twisted. Yi Hao's eyes were calm. He had seen too many things in the endless abyss, so he had no feeling at all about this bloody slaughter. His pupils were dark red, as bright as deep stars. Kindness and mercy, the abyss demons don't need these things. Ah! A sharp and shrill cry cut through the sky, irritating Yi Hao's eardrums. Yi Hao raised his eyebrows slightly, and his eyes fell on Qilin. At this moment, Qilin's eyes were scarlet, as if she had lost her mind. Yi Hao watched this scene calmly, not caring about Qilin's state. He rubbed Qilin's delicate and smooth skin with his fingers, looking like he was enjoying it. Can't stand such a little stimulation? So boring. Yi Hao pouted. He knew that Qilin had begun to go crazy. Sure enough, with the piercing pain sweeping over, Qilin went crazy immediately. Her whole body exuded a strong killing intent, and at the same time, a group of extremely cold blue mist rose up around her, covering her face. She seemed to be crazy. She wanted to freeze everything. But no matter how low the temperature she released was, it would not have any effect on Yihao. I see. It felt good. Yihao experienced the coldness on Qilin's body. While Yihao was stroking Qilin's graceful body, Qilin trembled all over, as if suppressing some kind of pain, which made her twitch all over, and she even stopped breathing. Yihao glanced at Qilin and found that the figurine was on the verge of sinking. It seems to be almost done. In that case, I will lend you a hand. After Yihao finished speaking, he stretched out his big hand and directly grabbed Qilin's neck. The power of the abyss on his palm flowed. Under the penetration of the power of the abyss, Qilin finally couldn't resist. Her delicate body trembled violently, and her will was completely in chaos. In her mind, a series of illusions emerged. Those illusions were all her killing her comrades with her own hands. Blood dripping. One after another, corpses fell to the ground. At that moment, her heart also bled. Kill. Destroy. Qilin screamed in her heart. She seemed to see her future. She saw that she would become extremely bloodthirsty. She saw herself turning into Shura in the end, slaughtering the whole world. Kill. She suddenly opened her eyes and shouted. Then, she looked up at Yihao, and her beautiful and pure face was full of murderous intent. Then, the killing intent gradually subsided. Yihao looked at Qilin, who began to hide her killing intent, and a wicked arc appeared at the corner of his mouth. Not bad, not bad. You know to restrain your killing intent when you are not strong enough, although you are still very immature. However, you have finally taken the first step. Yihao played with Qilin and commented. Then, a powerful force of the abyss spread from his body, and the terrifying force of the abyss instantly enveloped the entire house. Rumble. Qilin was suppressed in an instant. Remember, in the endless abyss, being weak is the original sin. The strong survive, and the strong are respected. Yihao said calmly, the law of the jungle is the eternal law. His voice was a bit vicissitudes and hoarse, more like a cry from ancient times, which made the soul of those who heard it tremble. Qilin accepted all this silently. Yihao nodded with satisfaction. As a subordinate demon of his contract, it would be meaningless if Qilin always had kindness and mercy. Next, I'm going to give you a task, Yihao said calmly. Then, he gently pressed his palm on Qilin's head. Then, a piece of information poured into Qilin's mind. Qilin digested the information in her mind. She felt complicated. She didn't expect that her first task would be to detonate the means arranged by the master in the entire Juxia city. She knew what the consequences of doing so would be. This would cause the millions of people in the entire Juxia city to become nutrients for the master's growth, and would also cause the entire earth to fall into crisis. However, Qilin is no longer the same Qilin as before. She is an abyss demon. As the master's slave, she has no right to choose. Yes, great master, Qilin responded respectfully. Then she took the initiative to serve Yihao and unlocked more postures. Yihao closed his eyes and enjoyed the pleasure of this moment. At the same time, in the command room of the Juxia, Dukeo looked at the overwhelming thunder on the screen and felt a little heavy. Just now, several fighter planes and an army were destroyed by the enemy. Those soldiers didn't even have a chance to fight back before they were blown up. That monster is too scary, with power far superior to that of ordinary people. Could he be a third-generation divine body? Dukeo thought to himself, but he didn't quite believe it, because the third-generation divine body represents the product of a god-making civilization. If that's the case, then it is likely related to the demon civilization. After all, the demon civilization is notorious. It once set off a bloody storm in the known universe. This unscrupulous style of behavior, it is very consistent with the character of Morgana, the most evil demon king in the known universe. Morgana, what does this have to do with me? I didn't do anything, and you put the blame on me? I provoke you. However, Dukeo can't care so much now. Have you locked the coordinates of the monster? Dukeo asked. It's impossible to lock the specific coordinates. It can only be roughly detected that it is in the villa area, Yuqin reported. Notify everyone, aim all firepower, and prepare to cover with firepower. Yes. Then, various artillery and missiles adjusted their shooting angles. Dukeo's face was grim. This monster was definitely not an ordinary one. If the other party is not dealt with quickly, then the millions of residents in Juxia City who have not yet evacuated will face a disaster. General, according to the detection of the Dinner 2 system, there are other survivors in the villa area. Do they need to be evacuated? Someone asked. Chapter 14. Evacuate immediately, Ducao said coldly. But this may alert the monster. Yuqin said worriedly. We must evacuate too. Let Qiangwei do this. She has the time and space gene, and can quickly evacuate the residents to avoid casualties. Ducao ordered quickly. Yuqin nodded slightly after hearing this. Yes, sir. Then Yuqin picked up the communicator, connected to a channel, and contacted Qiangwei. After Qiangwei connected the communication, she had a brief conversation and quickly rushed to the villa area. Where is Wukong now? Ducao asked. We have arrived in Tianhe City and are expected to enter Juxia City in half an hour. Yuqin reported. Yes. Ducao relaxed. If Sun Wukong helped, plus Qiangwei and artillery coverage, it might be much easier to deal with this monster. In a secret research base near Juxia City, the silver-white research equipment flashed a dazzling light. At this time, the bodies of the Abyss demons were placed on the research table. Lianfeng and a group of researchers who came from the Giant Canyon were frantically performing various dissections on the Abyss demons. If possible, they even wanted to perform live dissections. They wanted to figure out the gene chain structure and body tissue structure of the Abyss demon, but unfortunately, they failed. The structure of this gene chain and body tissue is extremely strange and complex. They tried to scan and analyze the Abyss demon with high-end instruments, but they found that the scan results showed that it was full of various strange and obscure fluctuations, which made it impossible to read and understand. Damn, how can the gene chain of these guys be so complicated? It's incredible. Someone frowned. Continue to analyze. We can't give up any clues. The gene chain of these monsters is very valuable. Yeah. On the side, Lianfeng also looked worried. Dean Lianfeng, what should we do now? Someone asked Lianfeng. Lianfeng shook her head. Let's continue the dissection first. She felt that she had encountered trouble this time, and the degree of difficulty was beyond imagination, because she found that the gene chains of these monsters were chaotic and disordered, and seemed to lack some rules. Moreover, the more she studied them, the more she found that their gene chains were completely messy and there was no rules at all. If you force it, it will probably be counterproductive. The body structure of these guys is very strange, and it doesn't seem to be a pure combination of genes. Yes, although we dissected the bones, muscles, blood, etc. in their bodies, but we found that their cells seem to have strong resistance, and our god-killing weapon had no effect on them. Unless intense stimulation is taken, the active state of their cell nuclei will be destroyed. A scholar began to complain. What do you mean? Lianfeng asked. I think we should change the direction of research. The researcher continued. For example, use cloning technology to cultivate and study these monsters. If we can master this technology, then we can create powerful supergene warriors, and even supergene warriors comparable to divine bodies. As soon as these words were said, everyone around them became excited. We can try it. Okay, then let's list this project as a research topic first. Everyone was talking about it. Lianfeng frowned slightly. The database of the Dinner civilization naturally has technical information at the divine body level. It's just that the resources required are not something China can afford. But if we use the genes of these monsters to create supergene warriors similar to divine bodies, we can study it. But what you said does make sense, but our technological level is limited. Even if we have enough technological resources to support it, we can't create a divine body. What's more, the success rate and safety of your so-called cloning research are questionable, Lianfeng said in a deep voice. The scholar was stunned. Forget it. Let's not discuss this issue for now. Lianfeng saw that everyone in the laboratory was staring at him with bright eyes, and immediately sighed. You continue to study. If there is a mature plan, I will definitely agree, but not at this stage. I need to report to the higher-ups first. Everyone was a little disappointed when they heard Lianfeng's words, but they still suppressed the impulse in their hearts. After all, this proposal is too important, and it is not up to them to decide. A crisp sound of footsteps sounded. Everyone turned around and saw a woman walking into the laboratory. Doctor, hello? A male staff member in charge of recording data greeted respectfully. The woman nodded and then walked to Lianfeng. Chief Lianfeng, there is a very important thing to report to you. Lianfeng frowned slightly. What is it? This is the latest information about the monster. The woman handed Lianfeng a document. Lianfeng took the document and flipped through it. His face suddenly froze and he raised his head in shock. "These monsters are actually infectious," she said in astonishment, then lowered her head to look at the document carefully. After a moment, her face suddenly changed, and she said in shock, "When did this happen?" "Just now. Many people in Juxia City suddenly mutated into monsters. According to investigations, these people have come into contact with this monster," the woman said slowly. Plop, Lianfeng's head was dizzy, and she slumped in the chair. After a long time, she slowly stood up, her face as pale as paper. Her eyes revealed a strong shock and helplessness. "I know. I will deal with it as soon as possible," Lianfeng said slowly. She knew what this meant. This means that everything in Juxia must be sealed off, and any existence that may have come into contact with monsters must be sealed off or eliminated. Otherwise, once it spreads, the consequences will be disastrous. Chapter 15. Captain Lianfeng, the higher-ups asked what we should do. The woman pressed. Lianfeng was silent for a long time. Her eyes gradually became firm and cold. "Inform the higher-ups immediately. No one is allowed to enter Juxia City, and no one is allowed to leave. All those who may have come into contact with monsters must be controlled and strictly guarded against." "Yes." The woman took the order and was about to retreat, but suddenly stopped. "Captain Lianfeng, what about us researchers who have come into contact with monster corpses? No one is allowed to leave Juxia City until the order is lifted." Lianfeng's tone was firm and unquestionable. Her heart was already a little confused, and she had to keep herself calm. "Yes." The woman retreated and left with Lianfeng's order. Lianfeng rubbed her temples and tried to calm herself down. She looked around at the researchers who looked a little panicked and couldn't help frowning. "Captain Lianfeng," several researchers shouted in a low voice. Lianfeng glanced at them and then said lightly, "Everyone, please relax. Believe me, we will find a solution." After that, Lianfeng walked straight out. She wanted to prepare the research report as soon as possible. However, she had just taken 2 steps when her steps suddenly stopped, because she found something unusual. "Something is wrong." Lianfeng frowned. "Why do I feel?" Roar. I saw that a researcher in the corner suddenly opened his mouth and roared, and white mist spewed out of his mouth and nose. Not good. Lianfeng's pupils contracted. Under her gaze, the researcher swelled up visibly. His skin was covered with black lines, his eyes were red, and his mouth was sharp and sharp. He howled like a beast and pounced on the person closest to him. Bang! He grabbed the staff member next to him and tore his body apart in an instant, and blood spilled all over the ground. The other researchers were horrified and ran away quickly. "Help! The monster is killing people. Run! The monster is eating people." Many researchers panicked and fled out the door. However, at this time, a group of soldiers in camouflage uniforms suddenly rushed in from outside the laboratory. They held guns in their hands and aimed directly at the researcher who had begun to mutate. "Don't move," the soldiers shouted, and then pulled the trigger without hesitation. Bang, 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 the dense bullets poured wildly, and in the blink of an eye, the researcher was shot into a sieve. However, the researcher did not die, but struggled to get up, his black fur flashing with metallic luster, as if he was wearing a set of armor, fierce and hideous. Completely mutated into an abyss monster. Yes, this kind of mutant creature without wisdom is uniformly called an abyss monster in the abyss. Only with wisdom can one be called an abyss demon. Swoosh at this time. A bullet pierced the shoulder of the abyss monster, but did not penetrate it, leaving only a shallow mark. How is it possible? The soldiers were shocked. This growth rate was too fast. Roar. It roared and rushed again. It was so fast, like a gust of wind, and rushed to the soldiers in the blink of an eye. Snap. A soldier was grabbed by the neck by the abyss monster and thrown out fiercely. Puff. The soldier's neck burst instantly, and blood gushed out. The researcher's eyes were cold, and he grabbed another soldier again. These researchers could not stop it at all. Every time it swung its claws, a soldier was killed. Lianfeng opened her beautiful eyes in shock. She did not expect such an accident to happen. Damn it! Lianfeng gritted her teeth and took out the walkie-talkie. "Everyone listen to the order. Everyone listen to the order." Click, click. An electromagnetic wave came from the walkie-talkie, and then it was completely scrapped. She was stunned. The walkie-talkie was broken? Not good. Lianfeng's pretty face was pale. "Everyone evacuate immediately. Evacuate immediately." Boom. As soon as she finished speaking, The abyss monster had already pounced on her and slapped out with a claw. Lianfeng hurriedly avoided it, and it was dangerous. Damn it! Lianfeng cursed inwardly and turned around to flee. Her ankle twisted, and she fell heavily to the ground. Roar! The abyss monster roared and pounced on her. Beast! Don't you dare to hurt Chief Lianfeng. Suddenly a figure came across the sky and protected Lianfeng with his body. Bang! The abyss monster slapped out with one palm, hitting the man's back hard. The man fainted on the spot, spitting blood, and his life or death was unknown. Lianfeng didn't have time to feel sad and saw the abyss monster attacking again. She hurriedly rolled over to avoid the attack. However, the abyss monster was persistent and continued to chase Bang. At this time, the anti-material sniper rifle sounded, and a bullet pierced the abyss monster's chest. It staggered, then raised its head suddenly, staring at the place where the sniper was hiding with its scarlet eyes. Whoosh! 2 bullets flew over, hitting the abyss monster from the left and right respectively. The abyss monster screamed and retreated several meters. Roar! Its angry roar seemed even more violent and crazy. It lowered its head and slammed into the wall of the laboratory table. Boom! The whole laboratory shook violently, the wall cracked, and a large number of gaps were exposed. Damn it! Doesn't it weaken its fighting power even if it's injured? Lianfeng was shocked. Bang bang bang, another fierce exchange of fire, but the effect was minimal. Although the abyss monster was injured, it was still strong and difficult to kill. Quick! Get out, get out! Lianfeng shouted, asking everyone to retreat first. Everyone withdrew, and then other heavy firepower bombed without reservation. Rumbles, smoke, and dust filled the sky, and flames were everywhere. The abyss monster was finally defeated and fell to the ground. Its huge body burned, and the strong smell of sulfur filled the entire laboratory. Will we become like this? A researcher asked tremblingly, with fear and despair in his eyes. All this happened too suddenly, without any signs at all, and it was hard to guard against. Lianfeng was silent and didn't speak. The strength of this monster is actually not very strong, but the suddenness of the people around you suddenly turning into monsters, it's really unacceptable, because you never know. Will you become a monster in the next moment, or will someone around you become a monster? This kind of unknown is the most tormenting. Chapter 16. Don't talk nonsense, you are still young. You still have a chance, and you still have a future. An old doctor comforted, but everyone knew that he himself was unsure. Captain Lianfeng, how to deal with the bodies of these monsters? At this time, an officer came over and asked, seal them for the time being. Lianfeng thought for a moment and answered. Then, a group of soldiers put the bodies of the abyss monsters into special containers. They were also worried because they knew that they might also become monsters. It's just that their duty is to protect the country. Now that the country is in such a crisis, they have no choice but to resist resolutely. Lianfeng walked in front, her eyebrows furrowed. The current situation is getting worse and worse, and she can't even find the infection route. If this mutation spreads, the consequences will be disastrous. She dared not imagine that kind of scene. She couldn't wait to have a video conference with Ducao. General, we have tried our best. Lianfeng briefly described the matter, then sighed. I checked the database of the dinner civilization and did not find similar cases, and from the current situation, the probability of this infection is extremely high. Yes. Ducao nodded, his tone solemn. This matter has been reported before, but this infection method is really secretive, and we can't find relevant information. This matter is tricky. Without data support, they are helpless and have no idea what to do. What bothers him most is whether Gu Xiaoluan, Lu Chuang, Qiangwei, are they also infected? Qiangwei is most likely to be infected. After all, she has fought those monsters. Gu Xiaoluan and Lu Chuang, are they still unknown whether they are infected? He can only seal off the super seminary first. No one is allowed to go out. Alas, I don't dare to let Wukong enter Juxia City now. He is our last trump card. If it gets out of control, Ducao pondered for a long time before saying, you have to work hard during this period. Find a solution as soon as possible, otherwise Juxia City will really fall. General, don't worry, I will do my best. Alas. Ducao couldn't help sighing. The current situation is too serious. They have to make a choice to sacrifice a small number of people in exchange for the safety of more people. This sacrifice is cruel, but it is indispensable. At this time, Juxia City is viewed from a god's perspective. Pieces of red fog are dotted in every corner of the city. This means that the erosion of the abyss has further progressed. Inside the villa, Yihao lay lazily on the big bed, his fingers wandering on Qilin's delicate body, enjoying this rare and comfortable time. At this time, the gift of the will of the abyss came, which made Yihao's strength improve a little again. Have the abyss monsters started to be born? It's quite fast. Yihao felt the gift of the abyss will, his mouth slightly raised, and his smile was rich. Although the gift from the abyss will was not much this time, it was just the beginning. It means that there is no problem with his plan, and the large-scale infection of the abyss has begun. Yihao estimated that the time to completely detonate his hand was not far away. Sacrificing the entire Juxia city, I wonder how much my strength can be improved? Yihao murmured, his eyes flashing with an inexplicable brilliance. Qilin felt that the aura on Yihao's body became stronger. Her beautiful eyes were charming, and she took the initiative to stick to Yihao and hugged Yihao's waist. Master, you seem to be more powerful now. Really? Yihao smiled faintly. Looking at the beauty in his arms with interest, Yihao stretched out his index finger to pick Qilin's snow-white and delicate pointed chin. Qilin cooperated and raised her neck, letting Yihao touch her. Her face flushed. Her heart was cold. However, she still pretended to be weak and cute, obedient, letting Yihao manipulate her. She just wanted to become stronger now, stronger than her master. This way she could get rid of the shackles of the abyss contract. She knew how difficult it was, but no matter how difficult it was, she had to grit her teeth and bear it. She needed strength, and she couldn't wait to become stronger. Yihao knew Qilin's thoughts clearly. The existence of the abyss contract made everything about Qilin visible. He didn't expose her, but just calmly appreciated the beauty's current posture. Qilin was in human form at this time, with soft hair draped over her shoulders, long and straight legs, slender waist, full breasts, and exquisite curves. Her skin was as soft as a baby's, exuding charming temptation, making people want to fall to the ground and taste the beauty. Qilin shyly buried her head in Yihao's arms and said in a low voice, "Master." Her voice was full of charm, seducing the most primitive desire in a man's heart. But Yihao did not hesitate and pushed Qilin's delicate body away. The time is almost right. It's time to end it. Yihao stood up, walked slowly to the window, and opened it. It was pouring rain outside the window. It was dawn and the wind was howling, shaking the trees. Yihao looked up at the sky. Suddenly, he showed a wicked smile. Space fluctuations, time and space roses? Is this delivered to your door? He carefully sensed the space fluctuations in the villa area, trying to capture more information. At this time, Qilin turned back into the cold abyss demon form. I saw a layer of ice blue scales covering the surface of Qilin's body, wrapping it up like armor. The ice blue hair floated in the air, as smooth as silk and crystal clear. Qilin opened her arms and looked up at the sky, showing an intoxicated expression. The ice blue demon's wings spread out, about 5 meters long, and the flapping caused gusts of wind and dark clouds. She roared, and her figure soared into the sky, flying high in the sky. The ice blue wings fluttered lightly, causing hurricanes. Yihao stood in the villa, watching Qilin's actions with a smile on his face. Vented out, Qilin hovered in the sky, overlooking the villa below, with a hint of cruelty in her eyes. She flapped her wings and disappeared in the sky. Yihao looked at her disappearing back, with a playful smile in his eyes, then turned around, returned to the bedroom, and cast the spell, Projection Mirror, to transmit all the images in Juxia City. This spell is very simple. With Yihao's attainments, naturally mastered it. Soon, Yihao noticed the extremely tall and sexy figure in the villa area. Chapter 17. The long wine-red hair cascades down like a waterfall, and the devilish figure is well-proportioned. And that cold, beautiful, proud, and clear face is enough to amaze thousands of people. The raised eyebrows are like the edge of an unrestrained sword, and under the thick, black eyelashes, the sharp eyes flash with confidence. The full and wanton lips, the high nose bridge, and the ears covered by the rose-red long hair make up the cold and heroic deep facial features of this beauty. She exudes a cold, murderous aura, and a tight combat suit outlines her hot figure. Especially the 2 peaks on her chest are particularly prominent. Time and space rose? Yihao narrowed his eyes and looked at the rose with interest, while observing the situation of the entire Juxia City through the projection mirror. At this moment, the number of abyss monsters in Juxia City is increasing rapidly. After all, it is not only humans who can become abyss monsters. Insects, animals, plants, will also be eroded by the abyss, resulting in mutations. Whether it is the abyss demons or the abyss monsters, all of them are madly rushing to the safe area where humans gather. They want to gain more power. Devouring flesh and souls can make them stronger. Yihao looked at the chaotic scene in Juxia City in the light curtain and couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. It has only been one night, and the entire Juxia City has fallen into panic and wailing. The breath of the abyss is getting stronger and stronger, and all this is thanks to him. These abyss monsters are still too weak. Looking at Juxia City, thousands of abyss monsters are wreaking havoc in the city. Yihao shook his head and felt a little boring. The strength of these abyss monsters is only equivalent to that of a growing demon. It may be terrible in the eyes of ordinary people, but in the eyes of Yihao, it is not worth mentioning at all. Then, Yihao focused his attention on Rose. Space-time gene. Yihao watched Rose in the light curtain, constantly transporting the survivors through the wormhole to other safe areas. Although this method is a little slow, it is safe. Yihao raised his mouth and showed an evil smile. Let me see if you, the time and space Rose, can escape from my hands. As soon as the voice fell, Yihao's figure suddenly entered the shadow dimension and quickly approached the Rose. At this time, the Rose did not know the danger she was about to face. In the eyes of the Rose, as long as these survivors were transferred away, she could open fire on the culprit who caused everything. When the Rose thought of the comrades and innocent people who died at the hands of monsters, the flames of anger burned in her heart, and she vowed to kill the murderer who killed her comrades. Rose kept moving her figure. She was looking for other survivors. However, at this moment, Rose instinctively felt a gloomy and terrible murderous aura locking her breath, making her body cold. This sense of crisis made the Rose palpitate. She turned her head suddenly and saw the familiar figure of Yihao appear in her eyes. How could it be him? When did he appear? Rose widened her beautiful eyes, and an unspeakable shock rose in her heart. Her reaction was also very fast. After sensing the danger, she immediately chose to stay away from this man. Otherwise, she would definitely die. Yihao watched Rose fleeing in panic, with a playful smile on his lips. Rose quickly carried out the wormhole and disappeared from Yihao's sight in the blink of an eye. The corners of Yihao's mouth rose, and he entered the shadow dimension to track Rose. Rose was constantly shuttling back and forth, not daring to hesitate for a moment. She knew very well that as long as she was caught up by that man, she would definitely die. Boom. Rose had just walked out of the wormhole and suddenly heard a loud noise behind her. She turned her head and saw that the man had appeared behind her at some point. Damn it! Rose gritted her teeth and cursed secretly. She didn't expect that guy to be able to keep up with her pace and catch up with her. She didn't dare to waste time and immediately continued to shuttle through the wormhole, rushing towards the edge of Juxia City, ready to escape. However, in the next second, a white, jade-like, slender, but powerful hand pressed on her shoulder. Rose's heart trembled, and she stopped in place for a moment. Only then did she realize that she could no longer carry out the wormhole transport. An invisible force restricted her. Hee. A cold voice sounded behind her, making her heart beat violently. Rose turned around slowly, and what appeared in her pupils was a handsome young man with a sharp face. Yihao looked at Rose, and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Why don't you run away? As he spoke, wisps of purple mist surrounded his body, making Yihao more and more evil and charming. Rose looked at Yihao's face, only to feel her head buzzing, and her heart beating wildly, as if it was about to jump out at any time, making her breathe rapidly. Fear. This is her only feeling at the moment. The oppression that man brought to her was too strong. She clearly wanted to tear him into pieces, but she couldn't do it at all. She didn't even have the courage to raise her hand, as if in front of him, she was as small as an ant and was not worthy of fighting with him. Now she didn't even have the qualifications to escape, which made her almost collapse. Why is this happening? Rose's eyes were confused and she murmured. Yihao looked at Rose's appearance, gently stretched out his right hand, and stroked Rose's delicate and tender cheek. Rose's body stiffened immediately. You, don't touch me. Rose was horrified, and her pretty face was full of panic. When Yihao's palm touched her delicate skin, she felt as uncomfortable as being scratched by a poisonous snake. Chapter 18. Yihao's mouth curled up and he smiled playfully. You have no say in this. Before Yihao finished speaking, he pinched Qiangwei's pretty face and rubbed it hard. This man actually pinched his face with his fingers? This is simply outrageous. Qiangwei's heart was full of humiliation. She struggled desperately, but it was still useless. Snap. At this moment, Yihao's big hand slapped Qiangwei's buttocks. Qiangwei groaned and her delicate body trembled slightly. Fear and shame made her almost crazy, and she wanted to rush up and tear this hateful guy to pieces. Unfortunately, she only felt that she was imprisoned and unable to move, and even resistance seemed extremely futile. Her buttocks were burning with pain. Finally, Qiangwei couldn't help screaming, tears rolling in her eyes. That was her proud figure, but it was ravaged by others. Rose's heart was filled with humiliation. Snap, snap. A drop of crystal-clear liquid slid down her snow-white neck and fell on her collar. Yihao looked at Rose's appearance and raised his eyebrows slightly. Are you crying now? Rose pursed her red lips stubbornly, unwilling to say another word. She stared at Yihao with hatred, her eyes flashing with deep hatred. You are just my captive. What's wrong with me teaching you a lesson? Yihao grinned, exerted a little force on his arm, and Rose's flawless curves appeared in front of Yihao. Rose's face flushed. She felt that her chest was about to explode, and her whole body was numb. This made her feel extremely humiliated. She actually, Rose's eyes were filled with tears, and her pearly teeth bit her red lips tightly while Yihao looked at Qiangwei's aggrieved and stubborn face, and a sense of tyrannical conquest emerged in his heart. He sneered and slapped Qiangwei's buttocks. Snap. Qiangwei only felt a burning pain in her buttocks, as if she was hit by a branding iron, which made her miserable. Qiangwei gritted her teeth and endured the humiliation in her heart. She would not compromise with this guy. Even if she was insulted by this D, she would rather die than surrender. This is the most firm belief in Qiangwei's heart. Yihao looked at Qiangwei's expression, with the corners of his mouth curled up. He didn't care about her thoughts and continued to torture her. He wanted to destroy her pride and make her kneel down at his feet and beg for mercy. Yihao slapped Qiangwei one slap after another, making her gasp for air. Enough! You devil! When Yihao slapped her buttocks for the fourth time, Qiangwei finally couldn't help but explode, suddenly opened her eyes and roared. Yihao's eyes were fixed on Qiangwei, looking at her face which was flushed with anger. He suddenly grinned, revealing his neat white teeth. His smile was very deceptive, but the cold light in his eyes was enough to chill one's bones. Seeing Yihao's creepy smile, Rose's heart trembled and she felt a chill on her back. This guy is so scary. Yihao looked at Rose's panicked expression in front of him and felt bored. What a disappointment. I thought you would become more wild, but you turned out to be so timid and cowardly. Yihao shook his head, seeming quite disappointed. You. Hearing Yihao's words, Rose was angry. Her chest was floating up and down violently. A wave of anger grew and spread in her heart, making her pretty face colder and colder, like 1,000 years of frost. However, she did not notice that a stream of invisible red light was gathering towards her body and merging into her delicate body. These red lights were the power of the abyss. Although Rose had the time and space gene, it was meaningless in front of the power of the abyss. Yihao saw all this. As the initiator, he naturally knew that the power of the abyss could erode Rose's body, causing her to fall into the abyss and become an abyss demon. Qiangwei couldn't see the expression on Yihao's face. She only felt that her blood and qi were gushing out, and she had a tendency to be restless. What's going on? After Qiangwei realized the situation in her body, her expression changed drastically, and a touch of shock and fear climbed onto her pretty face. She had never experienced such a strange thing. What on earth did you do to me? Qiangwei stared at Yihao. She felt that the blood and qi in her body were getting stronger and stronger, and even had a posture of breaking out of her body. This situation made her very worried. Don't worry, this is a good thing. You will know later. Yihao smiled evilly, his eyes full of teasing. The abyss contract was condensed by him and suppressed in Qiangwei's soul. Qiangwei couldn't sense any abnormality at all. Only Yihao understood what the abyss contract meant. Rumble. Suddenly, there were thunderous sounds in Qiangwei's mind. Then, a stream of invisible abyss energy turned into substantial waves, sweeping her whole body. These abyssal energies continued to spread, like a spider web, wrapping up Rose's limbs and bones. Well, it's so uncomfortable. Rose's body began to tremble slightly. Waves of strange sounds echoed in her ears. Yihao's eyes were shining, and a faint arc was drawn at the corner of his mouth. I don't know what kind of demon she can become, Yihao thought secretly. I feel so hot inside. Rose whispered. Rose has now completed the initial transformation. Her skin is pink and tender. Her figure is exquisite, especially her pair of jade legs, which are straight and slender, tempting to commit crimes. I feel so hot. Rose's delicate body kept twisting. She felt hot all over. Her skin seemed to be burning, making her a little unbearable. Is this a succubus? Yihao's heart moved. He had seen the horror of the abyss succubus. They were a group of seductive, insidious, and extremely cruel abyss demons. The abyss succubus, as the name suggests, is a being that charms and confuses all beings. However, no matter what kind of demon it is, it must submit to him. Chapter 19. Just when Rose transformed into the abyss demon, inside the command center of the giant canyon, bang, 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 Ducao looked at the screen and couldn't help but slam the table hard, with a bit of anger on his face. Damn it! Rose was captured alive by the enemy. She has even begun to mutate. Ducao's face became particularly ugly. Originally, according to the plan, even if Rose's time and space genes couldn't beat them, she could still escape. After all, Rose has the heaven-defying talent of time and space genes, but who knew that Rose would fall into the hands of the enemy? Now, Rose was captured and may even mutate into a monster. This is bad news for Ducao. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! Ducao roared, wishing he could rush over and cut Yihao into pieces. General, the artillery and missiles have locked the target. Should we fire immediately? An officer came over and asked Ducao. General, Rose is still in the hands of the enemy. Don't get excited. Yuqin said hurriedly, looking at Ducao, her beautiful eyes revealing deep worry. Yuqin's beautiful eyes stared at Ducao, hoping that he would remain rational and restrain his anger. Rose is the owner of the space-time gene and the technological crystallization of the Denner civilization. Rose was cultivated by Ducao, and now she has fallen into the hands of others. Anyone would be furious. Not only Yuqin, the other officers also looked nervous. Rose has begun to mutate. It will be troublesome if we delay any longer. We must get rid of that monster as soon as possible. Otherwise, if he escapes again, we will be very passive. Ducao gritted his teeth. His forehead was bulging with blue veins, and his face was full of anger. General, there are still many survivors in that area. I don't think we can launch an attack rashly. I'm afraid there will be heavy casualties. What's more, with the ability shown by the monster, artillery coverage may not work. Another officer reminded. Ducao snorted heavily, staring at the officer with a cold look. Doesn't he know this? But he had to make a choice. What do you think I should do? General, all firepower units, immediately implement concentrated firepower strikes to ensure that the target area is fully covered. All consequences will be borne by me. At the same time, try to contact Qiangwei to see if she has lost her mind. As Ducao's order was conveyed, the Giant Gorge aircraft carrier battle group immediately released a terrifying attack, and the overwhelming missiles and shells whizzed out, blasting directly towards Yihao's position. If Ducao had not retained a trace of reason, it is estimated that the nuclear weapons would have been thrown out. Whoosh, whoosh. The dense missiles like locusts whizzed and swept a black line in the air. Qilin looked at the rain of missiles that slid over her head, and the whole person was stunned. Her heart was pounding, her forehead was covered with sweat, and she felt a little scared. If the missile rain had been directed at her, she would have been torn into pieces by now. She knew in her heart that only her master could be targeted like this. Qilin thought, it would be better if that be D died. But she changed her mind and shook her head again. After understanding the endless abyss, she knew that these missiles alone could not do anything to her master. She did not stop, but continued to carry out the task assigned by her master. She planned to improve her strength while carrying out the task. She was tired of being weak. Boom, boom, boom. The dense missiles poured down like a tide. However, Yihao was still very calm, without any panic, and he didn't even blink his eyes. These missiles couldn't hurt him at all. However, Ducao actually wanted Qiangwei to entangle him, so he was interested in playing with Qiangwei. Qiangwei had the abyss contract on her body, and she couldn't hide any secrets in front of him. It's so hot. Dude, Qiangwei thought of the order just received in the secret communication, and she hesitated a little in her heart, and took the initiative to wrap around Yihao's arm. Qiangwei's body was pressed against Yihao's chest, making their bodies closer. Yihao felt the touch from his chest, and a ripple rose in his heart. Real stuff. Yihao's eyes became evil, He stretched out his hand to hold Qiangwei's slender and weak waist, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "Why are you so impatient?" He looked at the rapidly approaching missile rain and asked jokingly. At this moment, Qiangwei was in a state of transformation and was extremely unstable. But she still held on. She knew she couldn't give up this opportunity. Even if she died, she would cling to this man and die with him. She believed that the firepower coverage was enough to destroy him. Boom, boom, boom. Countless missiles cut through the void in the air, sweeping towards Yihao with a violent storm. "Are you scared?" Rose raised her beautiful face and hugged Yihao's neck with both hands. Her legs clamped around Yihao's waist and abdomen, trying to fix him firmly in place. "Afraid?" Yihao shook his head and smiled. "How dare you use such a cheap trick to show off?" With this level of firepower, Yihao didn't take it seriously at all. What are you doing?" Before Rose finished speaking, she suddenly screamed, and she felt numb all over. Yihao hugged her slender and soft waist with one hand, and supported her body with the other big hand, and exerted force suddenly. Rose's body trembled. Her cherry mouth exhaled a fragrant breath, and her body softened. Her delicate body leaned against Yihao's arms. Rose's eyes widened, staring at Yihao blankly. She didn't understand what Yihao wanted to do. Was he really not afraid of death? Boom. Just as the two were acting ambiguous, countless missiles finally fell in the area around them. The smoke and dust raised by the explosion blocked their vision. Rose felt a sense of danger coming. Her heart tightened, and she instinctively wanted to break free. But the next second, her body seemed to be stiff, unable to move at all. Rose was shocked to find that her body could not move. A layer of fine silver-white scales instantly covered her skin, making her flawless body look extremely hideous. Yihao didn't care about Rose's abnormality. He gently stroked Rose's hair and stared at her extremely seductive face with burning eyes. The fingertips brushed over the silver-white neck of Rose and finally stopped at the delicate earlobe of Rose. Is this a transformation into a void demon? Yihao thought. Swish. The next second, the demon wings stretched out from behind him, covering the area, forming an unparalleled protective shield. Chapter 20. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions continued to resound, shaking the sky. Missiles and shells exploded in this area, forming circles of shock waves. The terrifying air waves swept in all directions, turning the area where Rose and Yihao were into a dark vortex, swallowing the two. Boom. When the smoke and dust dissipated, a large pit appeared where Yihao and Rose were standing. The soil in the pit was black and red, emitting a strong smell of sulfur. At this moment, Rose collapsed in Yihao's arms, her cheeks blushing like blood. She felt sore all over, especially the pair of plump jade peaks, which seemed to burst her clothes, proud and upright. Rose didn't expect Yihao to be so crazy. He took advantage of her at such a critical moment, which was worse than a beast. Although Rose was very angry, she was more desperate. Such a terrifying firepower coverage could not destroy the opponent. What should she do? Is she really going to be buried here today? Rose bit her lips, her beautiful eyes were filled with tears. She felt extremely wronged, and tears dripped down her crystal white face. She wanted to cry, to vent. However, her pride did not allow her to show her vulnerable side. Rose tried to control her emotions. She wanted to live, because she still had too many things to do. She had not yet avenged her comrades, nor had she yet been able to wash away her shame. She was unwilling. Yihao looked at Rose's peerless beauty with interest, his palms stroking Rose's charming and delicate figure, feeling the touch of silver-white scales. Rose bit her red lips lightly with her pearly teeth and glared at Yihao angrily. I never thought that you would turn into a void demon. Tut tut tut, my luck is really good. Yihao gently pinched Rose's plump and snowy buttocks. Hissed. Rose couldn't help but twitch a few times. Void demon? What? Rose looked at Yihao in confusion. She didn't understand what Yihao was saying. Yihao didn't waste words. He pinched his right index finger and thumb, and a ray of red light flowed into Rose's brow, causing Rose's entire soul to fall into chaos. Rose only felt a pain in her head, and then a large amount of void demon inheritance memory surged into her soul. Rose was stagnant. She felt as if her head was about to split open, and scenes kept flashing out. Rose's pupils suddenly shrank into needle points, her breathing was rapid, and her body trembled. Those pictures kept stimulating her mind, and each scene made her feel miserable. No, I turned into an abyss demon. How could I become one of them? No, I don't want to. Rose screamed out of control, with clear tears flowing in her eyes. She tried desperately to get rid of it, but the more she resisted, the clearer the pictures became. Ah! Rose screamed in pain, her fists clenched tightly. She wanted to kill, but she didn't want to kill anyone. Don't look anymore. Rose screamed, trying to stop those images from invading her mind, but it was too late. Those memories flooded into her mind like a tide, making her feel miserable. She wanted to close her eyes, but her vision was occupied by those images, and no matter how hard she tried, it was useless. This was a legacy from the depths of her soul, and it was not something Rose could refuse. After a long time, Rose opened her beautiful eyes. Her eyes were scarlet and filled with murderous intent. Kill, she said indifferently. Her aura increased suddenly, and she disappeared from Yihao's arms out of thin air. When she appeared again, she was already behind Yihao. Puff. Rose waved her delicate jade hands that turned into claws and grabbed Yihao fiercely. The speed was extremely fast, like a ghost. Tisk. Yihao noticed the threat behind him, but he didn't care and ignored Rose's attack. He looked up and saw that Rose's body had turned into a void demon. The slender and graceful body was covered with silver-white scales, and a pair of illusory silver-white wings fluttered behind her, and a strong and unparalleled murderous aura filled the air. Not bad, not bad. It's really a void demon. Yihao smiled slightly. This woman is really lucky to have turned into a void demon. You know, the void demon is also a high-level demon in the abyss, and it is born with the ability to control space. This is why Rose suddenly appeared behind Yihao just now. If it were an ordinary demon, it would be impossible to avoid Rose's sneak attack. After all, the speed of the void demon is too fast. Not only that, Rose has the innate skill of space movement. As long as she wants, she can leave here at any time. However, Rose did not choose to escape, but attacked Yihao instead, which was enough to show that she had a strong hatred for Yihao. Damn it! Rose cursed inwardly, and she found that this guy did not seem to be as easy to kill as she expected. Yihao's mouth drew a wicked smile. Kneel down. The cold voice resounded through the sky, like a king, bringing great oppression to Rose. Rose's pretty face was pale, her body bent involuntarily, and she knelt on the ground. Yihao walked slowly towards Rose, staring at Rose indifferently. There was fear in Rose's beautiful eyes. She didn't understand why this man could manipulate her and make her kneel on the ground, as if she was as small as an ant in front of him. Rose glared at Yihao with gnashing teeth. She wanted to tear Yihao to pieces, but unfortunately she was powerless. She couldn't even control her own destiny. You are so stupid. You don't even think about how you became a void demon, Yihao said indifferently. He reached out and touched Rose's silver-white scales. The abyss contract is not something that a newly transformed void demon can resist. Swish. Yihao exerted force and tore off a scale directly. The intense pain made Rose's delicate body tremble slightly. Her eyebrows twisted into a knot, and fine beads of sweat permeated her forehead. But even so, Rose clenched her teeth and said nothing. She stared at Yihao stubbornly, her eyes full of anger. Yihao said calmly, "Do you think that you are qualified to fight against me by becoming a void demon? I tell you, even if you become a void demon, you are still an ant." Click. Yihao's wrist flew, and another scale peeled off from Rose's body. This time, Rose couldn't help but screamed and trembled all over. "Kill me if you dare, otherwise, I will make you pay," Rose roared in a low voice. "Pa pa pa." Yihao slapped twice, showing an admiring look. He looked down at Rose and said, "Very stubborn." "Kill me," Rose said coldly, and said in a firm tone. Yihao laughed loudly, laughing very presumptuously. "In this case, then you go and get Dekao's head." After Yihao finished speaking, he waved his hand to activate the abyss contract. Rose instantly felt an inexplicable force acting on her soul, and then her body teleported uncontrollably towards the giant canyon. Haha, the drama of father and daughter killing each other must be exciting. I'll wait and see, Yihao said teasingly, and his figure disappeared instantly. Chapter 21. Inside the command center of the giant gorge. The atmosphere seemed a bit dull. Dekao's face was ashen, and several officers around him also bowed their heads, not daring to breathe. "Waste!" Dekao roared angrily, and the entire command room was buzzing and trembling, as if it was about to collapse. The giant gorge aircraft carrier formation opened fire at full power, but it couldn't cause any damage to the enemy. Not even the corners of the enemy's clothes were damaged. The opponent even stood still and endured all the firepower bombardment. Such a weird scene made many officers feel a chill in their hearts. They have been in the army for many years and have encountered many enemies, but it is the first time to encounter such a weird existence with an incredible defense. Report to the general. The target person and Rose have disappeared from the monitoring range of the Dinner 2 system. In addition, Rose has completely transformed into a monster, and we can no longer contact her through secret communication. Qilin said hurriedly and seriously. Her face was uncertain, because Rose's condition was very bad. Although she didn't know what Rose had encountered, she knew that Rose was definitely not normal now. Rose turned into a monster. If she still retained the time and space gene, it would undoubtedly be bad news for China. General, you should make a decision. The current situation is very bad. I am worried that Rose can still make a wormhole jump, and then the Earth will be in danger. Qilin reminded. Her words shocked everyone. This is indeed something that must be prevented. If Rose really spreads these monsters, it will cause an uproar for the entire Earth. Ducao's face became even uglier and fell into silence. After a long time, Ducao sighed and said, "Search for Qiangwei's whereabouts. After locking her, notify Wukong to try to solve her." Qilin nodded with a complicated expression after listening. Although Ducao didn't say everything, his meaning was self-evident. The current situation is extremely bad. If Qiangwei is not found quickly, the monster will spread to the world sooner or later. Huh? What did Liang civilization say? Ducao asked. Qilin shook her head. Liang civilization has not responded yet. Ducao frowned and said, "The Dongfeng intercontinental nuclear missile has entered standby status and is ready to launch at any time. At the same time, immediately notify the senior leaders to completely block the entire territory. Any abnormal dynamics must be taken decisive measures to ensure national security and will not be tolerated." Qilin nodded. Ducao looked at the screen and murmured, "The tree wants to be quiet, but the wind does not stop." Qiangwei's speed is very fast. Her figure teleported quickly and quickly approached the Juxia aircraft carrier formation. At this time, Qiangwei was completely unable to control her body. She seemed to be just a spectator and could only watch her body being driven by some strange power and killing the Juxia aircraft carrier. Why is this happening? Qiangwei's face was ugly, and her heart was filled with panic. She tried desperately to get rid of the shackles of some strange power, but in vain. Would she really take off Lao Du's head and give it to him with her own hands? Qiangwei bit her lip. Her heart was thumping wildly, as if she had expected the ending. In any case, Lao Du was her father, and she really couldn't accept killing Lao Du with her own hands. Qiangwei clenched her fists, her eyes were red, and she tried to suppress the indignation and hatred in her heart. She didn't want to do this. She would rather die than destroy her home and her relatives with her own hands. Unfortunately, under the control of the Abyss contract, she had no power to choose. Her soul was now imprisoned, and her body was out of control. Powerless, really powerless. "Lao Du, I'm sorry," Qiangwei cried in her heart. Her heart was filled with guilt, but now she had no choice. Whoosh! Rose traveled through space and arrived near the Giant Gorge aircraft carrier formation in the blink of an eye. At this time, the entire aircraft carrier formation was on alert. Rose stood in the void, her body suspended in the air, surrounded by red mist, and her pupils were silver white. Rose looked up at the Giant Gorge aircraft carrier formation in the distance and disappeared into the void again. Giant Gorge Command Center. Ducao and other officers looked solemn, their eyes fixed on the area where Rose had just been on the big screen. "Rose is here. She looks very wrong," Qilin said worriedly. Many officers frowned, and of course they felt it. Ducao's face was cold, and there was a strong sense of uneasiness in his eyes. He shouted in a deep voice, "Pass the order down, fully open the defense system, and all soldiers are ready for battle." "Yes, General." All officers suddenly looked stern. They all knew very well that the newcomers were not friendly. Ducao looked solemn, looked at the communicator in his hand, and took a deep breath. "Rose, Rose, if you still have your sanity, stop what you are doing." Ducao tried to call out a few times, and his voice was broadcast to every corner. Unfortunately, Rose still did not respond at all. Her soul was now controlled by some powerful force, and she could not control her body at all. She could only let it continue to move forward until Yihao's instructions were completed. Ducao's face was ugly, and an ominous premonition surged in his heart. He did not dare to think about it anymore suddenly. He instinctively turned around and looked behind him. Behind Ducao, Rose's figure appeared silently and attacked Ducao with a powerful impact. "Be careful." "Damn." Rose is crazy. Qilin and other officers were all horrified when they saw this scene. They did not expect Rose to attack the general directly. She is the general's daughter. Will she lose her mind if she becomes a monster? Ducao reacted very quickly. He dodged the moment Rose appeared, but he was still a beat late. With a swish, the clothes on Ducao's chest were torn. A trace of blood splashed from Ducao's chest. General, Chief, Qiangwei, you are really crazy. Qilin and the other officers' faces changed suddenly. They didn't expect Qiangwei to kill Ducao directly. You know, Ducao is Qiangwei's only relative. Ducao covered his chest, looked at Qiangwei's appearance, and sighed slightly. Sorry, Lao Du. Please forgive me. I really can't control myself, Qiangwei said expressionlessly. Boom. The next moment, Qiangwei exuded a monstrous blood mist all over her body, and she disappeared into the void out of thin air. Ducao's pupils contracted, sweat flowed on his forehead, and he felt the crisis. When Qiangwei appeared again, she came to Ducao's side. Chapter 22. Bang, 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 the rain of bullets poured out in an instant, hitting Qiangwei's body. Ding, ding, dang, dang, the dense sound of metal interlacing sounded. Qiangwei was unharmed. Her scales glowed with a faint silver light, blocking all the bullet attacks. Qiangwei stretched out her arms to grab Ducao, and her right foot kicked Ducao's abdomen, kicking him several meters away and smashing him on the floor. Puff. Ducao spit out a mouthful of blood. Qiangwei disappeared again, and her figure turned into a ball of silver light, instantly covering Ducao. Don't! Qilin shouted hurriedly, trying to rescue Ducao, but it was too late. Boom! The silver light exploded, and the dazzling silver light was as gorgeous and beautiful as fireworks. But this gorgeous beauty only lasted for a short moment. The next second, the silver light dissipated, and Ducao's head disappeared completely, leaving only a mess. Qilin and other officers stared with their eyes wide open. They couldn't believe what they saw. They even suspected that they were hallucinating. Ducao, a war maniac, was beheaded by his own daughter. Ducao was dead. Even his head was gone. He died completely. He didn't even have a chance to resist. Is this world crazy? Who is Ducao? He was the former Marshal of No Star, a war maniac who launched a war in the Dinner Galaxy. But this war maniac actually fell like this? This is too unreal. General, Qilin cried heartbreakingly. Her tears slid down like broken pearls and dripped on the ground. Qilin was very sad. She followed Duca to Earth for so many years. Who could have thought that this day would come? The general didn't fall down when the Dinner civilization was destroyed, but he fell here. Rose, how could it become like this? Qilin knelt on the ground with tears in her eyes, lowered her head, and did not let other officers notice the sadness and despair in her eyes. The general is dead. Rose has become a stranger. The general is Rose's father. How could Rose kill her own father? This is illogical. She guessed that Rose might have lost her mind and turned into a killing tool. Even so, Rose's behavior is still chilling. Qilin bit her lips and tried to suppress the sadness in her heart. She did not allow herself to cry. Now that Rose is out of control, the entire fleet may be in danger. She must stabilize the situation. Contact Lianfeng. Qilin wiped the tears from her cheeks and returned to a calm and composed posture.
Yes.
An officer reacted quickly and contacted Lianfeng immediately. Soon, the video was connected, and Lianfeng's gentle and calm voice came from the screen. Qilin, what's the matter? The general died. Yuqin's voice trembled, full of sadness and desolation. The general died? Lianfeng's face suddenly changed when she heard this, and she stood up suddenly. Well, just now the general was. Qilin couldn't continue speaking halfway because Lianfeng's emotions were fluctuating violently, and it seemed that she would explode at any time. Lianfeng didn't hang up Yuqin's call. She clenched her fists. She couldn't believe that Qiangwei would attack her father. Lianfeng was silent for a moment and slowly said, "What is the specific situation?" Qilin recounted everything that had just happened, and finally Qilin couldn't help sobbing. At the same time, the real-time monitoring just now was transmitted. What is the current status of Qiangwei? Qilin wiped the tears from her cheeks and said, I don't know. I can't detect any information in Qiangwei's body. It seems that she is completely out of the scope of human beings. She is now out of control. After reading it, Lianfeng frowned even more. She thought for a moment and said, I know, leave it to me next. Qilin nodded. The two ended the communication. Lianfeng looked at the screen in front of her with a solemn expression on her face. Qiangwei had also mutated. How strong is Qiangwei in this state? Liang Bing couldn't imagine it at all. The situation is difficult now. She can't lose her composure. She must stabilize the morale of the army. Otherwise, the morale of the army will be scattered and the consequences will be disastrous. Liang Bing quickly contacted the top leaders to hold a video conference to discuss what to do next. She needs to make some preparations to ensure that everything is foolproof. At this time, Qiangwei was carrying Dukeo's head back to Juxia City to complete Yihao's instructions. Her heart was broken, as if her soul had also fallen into darkness. She only wanted to bury herself in the darkness and was unwilling to appear in the sun. She was still holding her father's head in her hand. She remembered what Dukeo had taught her, and she remembered it clearly. Laudu had warned her that no matter what you look like, you are a soldier. An excellent soldier must never abandon his duties and beliefs. Bewildered. This word is her only feeling now. She never thought that she would kill Laudu. She did hate Laudu, but that didn't mean she would kill her father. Her heart was very tormented, and she even felt suffocated. She didn't know what to do. She just hoped to end this nightmare as soon as possible. If this was just a dream. At the same time, in a villa, Yihao lazily lay on the sofa, crossed his legs, with a smile on his lips. He was looking at the red light curtain in front of him. This was the light curtain condensed by the spell projection mirror. Rose dragged Dukeo's head in her hand and was returning quickly to Juxia City. Rose's expression was cold and indifferent, without any ripples, as if the head in her hand had nothing to do with her. There was no emotion in her eyes, only emptiness and numbness. Will it be broken? Yihao muttered to himself, although Rose did not show any joy, anger, sorrow, or happiness. But he could feel from the abyss contract that her soul was falling into silence, like a body, without the slightest consciousness. Suddenly, the smile on Yihao's face gradually converged, and his eyes were fixed on Rose on the light curtain. Is it not good enough? Or is it not cruel enough? Yihao smiled faintly and shook his head. Rose's psychological quality was too poor. But this is normal. Rose at this stage has not grown up yet. She is just a super soldier with time and space genes. It is normal that her psychological quality is not good. Chapter 23. No, I have to continue to train Rose. Rose is too weak. She must learn iron-bloodedness and killing. Yihao narrowed his eyes. She is now a void demon. Can't she bear such a small blow? Isn't she a waste? When the strength of the void demon reaches a certain level, it can even distort reality, modify the rules, and create a void domain. Although not as good as Yihao's time and shadow demon, it is still limitless. As long as Rose is given enough training, she will definitely become a peerless warrior in time and fight for him in the universe. Yihao's goal is not only to conquer the Sea of Stars. He wants to rule the heavens and dominate the ages. Of course, this distance is too far, and Yihao has not considered too much for the time being. He just wants to train Rose into a sharp weapon first. Yihao waved his hand lightly, and the light curtain turned into dots of light and began to change, replaced by the picture where Qilin was. In the picture, Qilin is throwing a group of abyss monsters into a sacrificial magic circle, and she is accompanied by several little demons to assist. Qilin is wearing ice blue armor, heroic and extraordinary, with wisdom shining in her beautiful eyes, and looks very confident. Her hands are crossed in front of her chest, and her crystal-clear ice blue skin exudes a charming luster, tempting people to commit crimes. Her aura is extremely powerful, as if she controls everything. The little demons around her all lowered their heads and dared not look directly at Qilin. Boom! Suddenly, a blood-red crack appeared in the sky, and terrifying energy ripples swept in all directions, as terrifying as the end of the world. A hideous blood-red vortex emerged, and countless blood-colored mists gushed out of it. A strong smell of blood filled the air. Qilin looked up at the blood-red vortex in the sky with a complicated look. This is exactly the task Yihao gave her. Blood sacrifice to the abyss. Qilin knew what the result of doing this would be. However, Qilin had no choice. This was the task assigned by Yihao, and she had to obey it unconditionally. At least in this process, she devoured a lot of abyss monsters and became a peak demon, even because she was stained with Yihao's breath. She also subdued some demons as her subordinates. Not bad. Yihao looked at Qilin on the screen with interest. Yihao knew very well what Qilin had done during this period. After all, without his permission, Qilin could not have done so smoothly. Her actions were all carried out with Yihao's tacit consent. Yihao's eyes fell on the light curtain, the blood-red abyss vortex, which flowed with a strange blood-colored breath, faintly conveying a terrible pressure. This terrible pressure made Qilin difficult to breathe, as if she was strangled by some kind of power and could not catch her breath. This was the Abyss Vortex. It can speed up the erosion of the abyss and expand its range. The more abyss monsters are sacrificed, the faster the abyss will invade. Eventually, the entire universe fell into the abyss. At this time, from the perspective of God, the blood-red fog in the entire Juxia city is increasing rapidly, and the area originally covered by the fog is slowly expanding. The people in Juxia city feel strange, and they inexplicably feel irritable and bloodthirsty in their bodies, as if they are controlled by some evil things. Their eyes are red and irritable. This change quickly spreads throughout the city, causing huge riots. Even with the army maintaining order, it still cannot stop this chaotic form. Countless citizens fell into mania, madly attacking people around them, trying to vent their anger. The citizens of Juxia City are getting more and more anxious, and they don't know what happened at all. They only know that monsters have appeared, and they are wreaking havoc in Juxia City. Help. I don't want to die. I want to go home. Mom, please save me. I'm scared. I hate you. I hate you. I don't want to stay here. I want to get out. Juxia City is full of various voices, including the roars of men and women and the heartbreaking cries of children. Huge chaos was spreading, and people began to flee in all directions. The traffic in the middle of the street was completely blocked. Bang, bang, bang. Suddenly, gunshots pierced the sky. The harsh sound was creepy, and the street was instantly quiet, leaving only rapid heartbeats and breathing. The army suppressed the crowd forcefully. The crowd gradually subsided, but the turmoil did not stop, but intensified. At the same time, a formation of fighter jets was ordered to go to the area where the Abyss Vortex was located to try to destroy it. On the other side, the gift of the Abyss will has quietly arrived, making Yihao's power stronger again. This gift comes from the creatures in Juxia City who have been eroded by the Abyss because of him. His body swayed slightly, and his body seemed to be taller and more burly while Yihao slowly opened his eyes, and two red lights burst out. He gently clenched his fists and felt the surging power in his body. According to his estimation, if there is another gift of this level, he can become a middle-level demon. This feeling is really good. If it were in the endless abyss, it would not be so easy to get such an opportunity. However, Yihao was not satisfied, because he still needed to improve his strength. Only with stronger strength could he have a place in the endless abyss. If he was strong enough, he could even open the passage to the abyss directly. At that time, endless abyss demons would swarm in. That would be the real horror. Now it was just a small fight, which was not painful for the entire universe. Yihao turned his eyes to Qilin on the screen, with a smile on his lips. Qilin's performance was not bad. It turned out that hatred could inspire people to grow. Yihao continued to observe Qilin's changes. After Qilin completed the sacrifice, she exuded a more fierce, murderous aura. She stood in the void, looking down at the abyss monsters near the abyss vortex indifferently, with no ripples in her eyes. Then, a cold light flashed in Qilin's eyes, and her fingers suddenly pointed forward. Countless ice swords gathered in front of her. As Qilin's slender arms swung, dense ice swords fell down in an overwhelming manner. Seeing this, the abyss monsters hurriedly dodged and screamed in panic. Puff! Blood splattered, and hundreds of abyss monsters died on the spot. Then, her ice-blue lips outlined a faint smile, and a trace of cruelty flashed across her eyes. Then, the souls and flesh of those abyss monsters were all absorbed into Qilin's body. Her momentum suddenly soared at this moment. The ice-blue luster in her pupils became brighter and brighter. Her body trembled slightly, and the breath she exuded became more and more powerful. Her strength was growing step by step. Qilin's eyes became colder and colder, and her breath gradually climbed to the peak and reached the peak. Buzz! A huge ice-blue wing spread out from behind Qilin, and the world suddenly blew up with wind and snow. Frost lingered, and ice blades swept across. Qilin is only one step away from becoming a lower-level demon. Yihao whispered. Boom! Qilin raised her hand and waved it, and the terrifying power exploded, setting off a huge wave. A skyscraper could not resist at all, and it was reduced to ashes in an instant, disappearing cleanly. Qilin's face showed a trace of joy. She looked at the ice-blue demon wings behind her, and the arc of her mouth became more brilliant. Is this the feeling that power brings her? The feeling of becoming stronger is great. Boom! Suddenly, a thunderous sound came from afar. Then, fighter planes roared in. Report! We are approaching the mission target. There are special monsters near the mission target. Please give instructions. The pilot reported on a fighter plane. Advertisement. Chapter 24. Target locked. Attack immediately. Destroy the target. Lian Feng's serious voice came from the communicator. After Dekao's death, she was ordered to take over the battle command. Although she felt very uncomfortable, the reality was so cruel that someone had to take responsibility. She was our senior researcher, mainly responsible for technical research. It's a pity that Dekao's death made her take over his position and temporarily take charge of the battle. As her order was issued, boom, 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 the huge missiles dragged out long flame tails and blasted directly towards the abyss vortex below and Qilin's position. Qilin looked up and saw the dense missiles. She opened her lips slightly and uttered a few words. Eternal frozen extreme cold. A huge ice blue barrier emerged, covering the area in front of Qilin like a shield. Bang! The violent collision sounded through the sky, and giant missiles fell fiercely on the ice blue barrier, stirring up a violent ripple. However, surprisingly, the ice blue barrier was completely intact and still extremely solid. How is it possible? The pilot was shocked. He had seen the power of these missiles with his own eyes. With such firepower, even a mountain could be razed to the ground. How did this ice blue barrier block it? They couldn't help but think of the fighter formation that was sacrificed by Yi Hao at the beginning. Retreat immediately after pouring out the firepower. Lian Feng's order came again. She knew that it was very likely that the monster could not be solved with the firepower of the fighter. Boom. The missile bombing did not end. The intensive bombing was like a violent storm, raging wildly, and the ice blue barrier was shattered. However, what surprised Lian Feng was that the defense barrier was quickly restored when it collapsed, as if the explosion just now had no effect. However, Lian Feng obviously did not think that this was just a coincidence. She immediately ordered the fighter formation to evacuate. Whoosh! Fighter planes quickly flew across the sky, preparing to return. Qilin hesitated slightly when she saw this scene. She knew very well that her every move was under the surveillance of her master. Killing and destruction are inevitable. Then, she no longer hesitated, raised her jade hand and slapped the planes. A vast and unpredictable cold current gushed out, instantly covering a radius of 10,000 meters. Crack, crack. Those planes were quickly frozen under the ice-blue cold current and eventually fell into the abyss. All this happened too quickly, in just a few seconds. All this happened in a flash. By the time Lian Feng reacted, the fighter formation had already fallen. Lian Feng's pretty face was pale, her body staggered and swayed, and she almost fell to the ground. She did not expect that this newly appeared monster would have such great power. This was the second time she encountered such a thing. The first time was Yi Hao, and the second time is now. Their methods are extremely secretive and powerful, making it impossible to guess, and even a little unbelievable. Lian Feng sighed lightly, adjusted his emotions, and said to the headset, "All units, pay attention. Stay away from the area where the blood-red vortex is located and wait for orders. Receive." The combat units near the abyss vortex evacuated one after another. Data, a burst of hurried footsteps came from outside the door. Then, a woman in uniform hurried into the command room. "Captain Lian Feng." The female officer saluted Lian Feng. Lian Feng nodded. "What's the matter?" "Captain, I just got the news that the main god of the Liang civilization, Lina, will come to the Super God Academy," the female officer said respectfully. Lian Feng heard, and her beautiful eyes flashed with brilliance. Lina is coming? This is finally good news, and Lian Feng's expression eased a little. "Yes, Lina will come in a day, and the Liang civilization asked us to prepare for it. Not only that, the Liang civilization sent a warning that the Taotai core of the Styx civilization has already shuttled through the Great Insect Bridge to our Milky Way. Judging from the trajectory of the Taotai shuttle, the Taoi's target is likely to be our Earth." "What? The Taotai core?" Lian Feng's pretty face suddenly became extremely solemn. She certainly understood the cruelty of the Taotai and their bloodthirsty character. They are definitely not good people. One wave has not yet subsided, and another wave has risen. The monsters in Juxia City are still eyeing them, and now a ferocious Taotai core has appeared. Especially the Taotai core, as a remnant of the Dinner civilization. She knows very well how terrifying the interstellar war is, not to mention the ferocious and violent monsters like Taotai. "Captain Lian Feng, you need to make a decision on this matter." "I'm just telling you," the female officer said. Lian Feng pondered for a long time and said, "I know, The female officer took the order and left. A trace of bitterness appeared on Liang Bing's face. This matter was really one wave after another. It seems that some things are destined to be inescapable. Liang Bing murmured in a low voice, with a helpless tone. She took a deep breath, tried to stay calm, and then contacted Sun Wukong through secret communication. Buzz. The next second, Sun Wukong's voice came. What does Sister Liang Bing want to talk to me about? How is the training of Wukong, Gu Xiaoluan, and Lu Chuang going? Liang Bing asked. Don't worry, everything has been arranged, just waiting to attack. Liang Bing Wanyan continued. Wukong, the infection in Juxia City is getting worse and worse. I'm worried that it won't be long before all the people here will mutate. Even I can't be spared. I have authorized you the authority of the Dinner 2 system. I may have to hand it over to you in the future. Liang Bing said solemnly. What? Sister Liang Bing, what do you mean? Sun Wukong was startled and said quickly, I can't manage these. It's better to hand it over to you. Wukong, I won't hide it from you. I also have signs of mutation, but I can't do anything about it. Liang Bing sighed softly, and she looked at the blood-colored runes that had appeared on her arm a long time ago. There was a hideous scar there. The scar was like a living thing, wriggling constantly, emitting a light red fluorescence. The feeling was very uncomfortable and painful, as if cut by a sharp weapon. What on earth is this? Liang Bing was full of doubts, but she had no way to check. The shadow of mutation loomed over her heart, making her feel troubled. During this period, many people in the secret research base have mutated into monsters, but she has not yet found a solution. This feeling of powerlessness made her feel at a loss. Chapter 25. Sun Wukong also noticed that Liang Bing's condition seemed to be wrong, and he didn't know how to persuade her. It's okay to let him fight, but he's not good at scientific research. Moreover, there are too many problems here, and he can't intervene at all. The most important thing is that the number of infected people in Juxia City is getting bigger and bigger. Once it is completely out of control, the whole world will fall into chaos. After a long time, Sun Wukong suddenly said, Sister Liang Bing, as long as I am still alive, I will not allow these monsters to wreak havoc on the world. After speaking, Sun Wukong hung up the communication. Liang Bing silently looked at the chaotic scene in Juxia City on the screen. Her eyes were extremely complicated, and I didn't know what she was thinking. She could only do her best, and she didn't have any hope of success. Because this kind of infection was beyond her knowledge level, she was helpless. She had made plans for the worst. That is to nuke Juxia City. In the villa, Yihao sat quietly on the sofa. His eyes fell on Dekao's head in Qiangwei's hand. The eyes of the head were wide open. The pupils had lost focus, and the mouth was slightly open, as if still telling the unwillingness of the past life. Rose was like a frozen sculpture, motionless, holding the head tightly in her hands. Her eyes were empty and dull, as if her soul had escaped from the body. Her heart had long been devoured by pain and despair. Witnessing herself taking off Lao Du's head, this blow was too heavy for her. Rose's mind was numb now, and she was full of despair for this world. She didn't want to do anything, just wanted to wait quietly for the arrival of death. Perhaps this would free her from endless pain. Yihao looked at Rose's current appearance with interest and couldn't help shaking his head. Such a small blow was unacceptable. She was indeed a little girl who had never experienced big winds and waves. Yihao stretched out his hand and flicked Rose's eyebrows lightly, and a ray of red light flowed into her body. In an instant, Rose's originally dull eyes gradually glowed with a trace of spirit. Her cheeks twitched a few times, and tears instantly burst out of her eyes. The grievances and pains she had suffered during this period of time instantly turned into tears pouring down. The torture and depression during this period of time made her almost collapse. Woo woo, Qiangwei cried like a child, lying on the sofa and crying loudly. Yihao was quite disdainful of this. He took the teapot and poured a cup of hot tea. After tasting it for a while, he smiled and said, Qiangwei, your tolerance is really too poor. You can't even bear this little setback. You devil. Qiangwei looked up at Yihao, with a strong murderous intent flashing in her eyes. If it weren't for you, how could I become like this? She wanted to tear Yihao into pieces to vent her hatred. Qiangwei, you are wrong. Yihao smiled indifferently, stood up and walked to the windowsill, standing with his hands behind his back. Looking at the scene in the distance, Yihao said coldly, You have become like this. It has nothing to do with me. You can only blame yourself for being too weak. If you were strong enough, who would dare to provoke you? Qiangwei gritted her teeth, clenched her fists, and smashed them hard on the table. Crack, the table broke into pieces in an instant, but Qiangwei was also stunned. She looked at the broken glass shards, a little confused. Dukeo's head rolled to her feet, and a pair of dark eyes seemed to be staring at her, with sadness, pain, and helplessness in his eyes. Laodu, I'm sorry. She curled up and stroked Laodu's head with trembling fingers, tears flowing down uncontrollably. Rose, you should be thankful. At least you are a void demon. Suddenly, Yihao turned his head and a mysterious smile appeared on his face. He walked towards Rose and raised his right hand slowly. Only in this way can you be valuable. Bang! Yihao's right palm smashed Dukeo's head. His left palm clasped Rose's forehead. Rose's eyes widened, watching Dukeo's head explode into powder, drifting with the wind and dissipating in the air. Her heart ached, as if something was forcibly peeled off. Rose knelt on the floor in a daze, covering her head with both hands, wailing constantly. 2 blood-red drops flowed from the corners of her eyes. The drops fell on the cold floor, making a clacking sound. That feeling was like dripping into the heart. Yihao retracted his hand and looked at Rose indifferently. If Rose can't accept such a small scene, she is destined to have low achievements. Why Yihao doesn't have time to train a waste. What he needs is a subordinate demon who can assist him. Although he doesn't think that Rose can meet his expectations, Rose as a void demon still has some potential, and Yihao doesn't mind training her. Rose still kneeled on the ground in silence. Her silver-white eyes were full of bloodshot, and her face was extremely pale. After a long time, Rose exhaled a breath of turbid air and stood up calmly. When she merged the memory of the inheritance of the void demon before, she already knew what the endless abyss was. How terrifying and cruel the abyss demon was. This name left her with infinite fear of inheritance memory, and even made her unwilling to believe it for a time, and she escaped forever. However, the reality now gave her a blow. Escape can't solve any problems, only bravely face it. Her eyes are full of hatred and determination, and she knows clearly what she wants. Rose looked up at Yihao, her eyes as sharp as a blade. What do you want me to do? Yihao didn't care about what Rose was thinking. Anyway, before Rose didn't have enough power, she had to obey his orders, otherwise it would only hurt herself. Just like the will of the abyss never cared about the thoughts of the abyss masters who wanted to replace it. Desires are endless. Humans want to gain power, want to have power, want to gain immortality, want to pursue the truth. Various desires drive people to explore the unknown. But in the end, most of the endings are to destroy themselves. The same is true for the abyss demons, even purer. The little demon wants to become a lower demon, a middle demon, or even a higher demon. The big demon is eyeing the position of the abyss lord. Similarly, the abyss master, as the top existence under the will of the abyss, still longs to reach the top of the supreme throne. This is the endless abyss. As long as your power is strong enough, you can have everything. Yihao pulled Qiangwei into his arms, and the warm touch made her body stiffen slightly. What do you think? His palm slid across Qiangwei's scales, and a wicked smile appeared at the corner of his mouth.
Thanks for watching. You can find the next videos in the playlist linked in the info card, directly on my channel, or right here on the screen. And as always, if you have any feedback, feel free to share it in the comments too.